If Nona were a dinosaur from the land before time, she'd be Chomper. Okay. Hello, welcome to Attempting to Summon Alecto the Ninth, Part 3, the finale of the recaps. We still have bingo. It's called a recap, not a Kalia tells you about the book so you don't have to go read it. You know who you are? Go read the books first and then come back here. How many times do I have to tell you that? God. This is it. This is the final recap of a Locked Tomb book, because assuming that Alecto is the final book, assuming Alecto comes out, then I never need to do this again, because I'm not going to recap Alecto since I won't be summoning anything. I fear the summoning went wrong. We will all just read it ourselves, and then I'm assuming weep for the rest of our lives. Alright. Also, you know me, I love to point out a continuity issue, but I have a lot of them myself, so Nona the Ninth. We are in third person limited Nona POV. The chapters are grouped into days rather than acts. The whole book takes place over 5 days, counting down until the tomb opens. I'm doing air quotes behind the book. And then each day includes a chapter from the Book of John, or 2 chapters. John, God, the Necrolord Prime, the Emperor of the Nine Houses, telling somebody who is dreaming a story. And that story is the events of what happened 10,000 years ago that led to the formation of the Nine Houses and necromancy, also known as the Great Resurrection. An unreliable guy and a big fat liar. So take those chapters with a grain of salt. Each day starts with a short note. That's the key points of what happens on that day. Structure, mirroring content. Thank you, Tamsin. This book includes a lot of note-taking. Each of the books in the Locked Tomb series, Gideon, Harrow, and Nona, have a bit of an unreliable narrator for different reasons. Obviously, Gideon has other priorities. Just because somebody's honest doesn't mean that they're not unreliable. Because of the way Gideon delivers information to the reader, she's an unreliable narrator. And that's not because she's being purposefully obstructive. She's not lying for funsies. But Gideon is more interested in things that aren't the plot, such as ancient cougars pretending to be dead women. Can we blame her? She has to deal with Harrow, Harkonnen, and Jesimus on a daily basis. Bro does not know what's happening 95% of the time. Harrow gave herself a lobotomy, and Nona doesn't think like other people. Nona doesn't lie when she's narrating, but she will withhold information from the reader and also other characters. I think that a useful way to think about Nona, or at least how I think about her, is an interrogation of or a play on the born sexy yesterday trope. She's new, she has a lot of crushes on people, but she also knows a lot more than some people assume. Also, whereas the other books all began with a dramatic personae list of the characters, Nona starts with a list of people that Nona wants to invite to her birthday party. Guest list, as transcribed by C. Hecht. Dogs to invite to birthday party.
I'm Rena Bruyant. I love dogs.
Brown one by the fish shop, average sized, 4 legs. Stop it, name assumed, lies under counter at dairy, red color, big sized, 4 legs. White and black one, seen once in the park, average sized, tail curled twice, 3 legs. Noodle, king of dogs in secret, white adjacent, small sized, 6 legs. Spotted beach dog, often on beach, large sized, huge ginger eyebrows, 3 legs. Members of gang to invite to birthday party. Hot sauce, honesty, born in the morning, beautiful Ruby, Kevin. Teachers, the angel, ? Blood of Eden, crown him with many crowns. There's a no from Camilla. The captain, maybe. Not possible, says Camilla. Cell commander, we suffer, and we suffer. Although actually, she might be wing commander. I don't know which it is. It's both, and no, says Camilla. And you 3. Good to know, says Camilla. We do start with John talking to a woman in the dream. In the dream, they're sitting on the sand on a beach. So John and a bunch of people who he refers to by the first letter of their name, M-A-G-P, I wonder who these people are. They were all working on something that they thought could save you, person that John is telling the story to. Somewhere it went wrong and then he had to hurt you. She said, "I still love you." And in the dream, he rubbed his temple with his thumb and said, "You always say that, Harrowhark." So apparently the person that John is telling the story to is Harrowhark Nonagesimus. Day 1, 5 days before the tomb opens, Nona wakes up, as she usually does, to the person who takes care of her waiting with a voice recorder and notepad, ready to hear about Nona's dream. Nona's dreams usually involve being submerged in water. There's always a girl with a painted face holding her. She's got her arms around Nona. They're nice arms. Or maybe they're Nona's arms. Nona's not sure. And this face is the same face that they keep showing her a sketch of. This girl's arms go really tight around Nona, and then Nona woke up and has nothing else to tell the person recording her, Camilla Hegt. As usual, Camilla goes to talk to Palamedes about Nona's dream. Nona says, "Make sure to write down 'I love you, Palamedes,' from me." "I love you too, Camilla." Nona gets dressed. She used to get really scared when her head would get stuck in her shirt, and it's very important that she doesn't get upset because she's only had 2 tantrums in her life and she's not going to have a third. Nona, dressed, ready for the day, goes to see if Pyrrha needs help with breakfast. Nona's really hoping that something's gone wrong with breakfast and then she won't have to eat it. Nona prefers pencils, erasers, one time a marker cap, some sand. Nona laughs at an ass joke, which means that Nona has to go and mark a tally on a big sheet of brown paper tacked to the wall. Pyrrha made most of the jokes, which Nona says Palamedes would say is skewing the data. Nona's not sure which column is the ass joke column. Pyrrha has to tell her because Nona can count, but Nona can't read.
What up? I'm Jared, I'm 19, and I never fucking learned how to read.
Nona has very, very long black hair. It's long despite the fact that they keep cutting it. Pyrrha braids her hair, one big braid with 2 little side braids. Nona says, "I love you, Pyrrha." Camilla comes out of the bedroom. She's wearing glasses and complains about having eggs, which means that this is not Camilla. This is Palamedes. The easiest way, though, for people who aren't Nona to tell the difference between Camilla and Palamedes is the eyes. Palamedes and Camilla are sharing Camilla's body. When it's Palamedes in Camilla's body, he has Camilla's eyes. Camilla's slate eyes. And when it's Camilla in Camilla's body, she has Palamedes' gray eyes. But Nona can always tell the difference, even without looking at their eyes, just by the way that they stand, the way their bodies move. Although she can't read, she can read people's bodies better than anybody. That's her thing. Pyrrha makes another ass joke. Nona laughs. Nona has to put another tally on the paper. Palamedes said, "Dear God, 2 in a day? Why are we even remotely in doubt?" For some reason, Nona has no memories from anything ever. She started existing 6 months ago, hence the 6-month birthday party coming up. They have suspicions that Nona is one of 2 people. They live in a little apartment. Pyrrha works construction. Palamedes used to write erotica, but he's not allowed to do that anymore. And the 2 of them go into the bedroom to talk about something that Nona isn't allowed to know about. Nona eavesdrops anyway. Okay. Okay. So they're on a planet that is not in the 9 houses. People from a lot of other planets were resettled to this planet. So the city that they live in is super packed. There's 9 million people in this one city. It's not doing well. They've been displaced by the 9 houses, but also some other things. Blood of Eden, very active on this planet. Blood of Eden is connected in ways to the Pal, Cam, Pyrrha, Nona household. Blood of Eden calls Nona the Lictor Project, and they're very interested in her. Blood of Eden wants them to give Nona to them now, even though they were supposed to have her for a year. Pyrrha won't tell Palamedes any of the important intel that she got from those years that she was banging Gideon the Ninth's mom, Commander Wake.
Snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity.
Because she's worried what will happen if Palamedes/Camilla gets interrogated. Blood of Eden torture is bad. Okay. So there's a cohort barracks on this planet. They used to run this planet. The people on this planet do not like zombies. Nona's not allowed to say zombies, necromancer, anything like that. She's not allowed to talk about it. Because of how bad things are on this planet right now, there's a sense that if the cohort were to come, they might just go over to that side, as long as the cohort brought supplies. Palamedes and Camilla are looking for the 6th house. The 6th house is missing from the 9th houses. Like, I'm talking the whole 6th house, aka their house, their family. Pyrrha wants to stop looking for the 6th house. Pyrrha wants the 4 of them to grab a shuttle and take them to this little moon. Great soil. Pyrrha will teach them how to farm.
I do gay stuff.
And how to wait. Something is poking my head. Oh, hi, Hoya. The problem is that they don't have a ship. There are no shuttles. They couldn't even steal one. But the moment that Pyrrha gets a ship, she is getting them off this planet. Frick, whatever you want to do, pal Cam. There are different wings of Blood of Eden. We Suffer's wing of Blood of Eden is called Troyasal, I think. Tesiphon. Tesiphon is the wing, but We Suffer is also in charge of Troyasal. Both Tesiphon and Merv are in Troyasal. I cannot keep this straight in my brain no matter how hard I try. Does this matter? Unjust Hope, I think, leads Merv wing. All of the Blood of Eden stuff. As they're talking, a timer goes off. Pal says his time is up. Camilla calls out, "How long were you listening, Nona?" Palamedes can only occupy Camilla's body for a set period of time. If he stays in Camilla too long, he starts to do a lot of damage to her body. When Palamedes is in charge of Camilla, he can do necromancy in her body. Cam, Pyrrha, and Nona gear up to go outside. It's very polluted on this planet. They're very close to the sun as well. Not that Camilla, Pyrrha, or Nona will burn. They just have to pretend that they could burn so that they won't get found out for being zombies. Because of Pyrrha being the body of a lictor and Camilla having Palamedes inside of her, they have the advantages of magic. And so does Nona. Also, there's a thing in the sky. It's big. It's blue. It's doing something that Pyrrha calls periscoping. Oh no, that's a resurrection beast. It's been there a couple months. It hasn't attacked them. That's great. Pyrrha sort of battle briefs them a lot. They have code words. They have contingency plans where Pyrrha used to be in charge. You can take the commander out of the Pyrrha, but you can't take Pyrrha out of the commander. I did not mean it how that sounded. Okay, Camilla and Nona, what is the plan if that blue thing in the sky moves? Now, they're supposed to go into some underground tunnels, but Camilla wants to fight the heralds and Nona wants to save as many dogs as she can. Pyrrha says, "No, I used to run the whole bureau. Now I'm up against wannabe heroes and hairy dogs. This is the punishment she would have wanted for me." Nona doesn't know either of her possible names. That's why they call her Nona. The first thing that she said when they brought her here was, no. Nona also happens to mean 9th, which is important for some reason. Her body definitely belongs to one of those two people who has something to do with 9th. She's got eyes the color of egg yolks, thin face, arched brows, and a smile that always looks sad no matter how happy she is. So this family structure is Camilla's body containing Palamedes and Camilla, and Gideon the Saint of Duty's body containing Pyrrha Dve, co-parenting Nona, who lives in the body of Heroharch Nonagesimus.
It's not that complicated.
No.
Nona thinks she's gorgeous. Nona likes to talk to herself in the mirror. One time, Camilla caught Nona kissing herself in the mirror. Camilla took 6 pages worth of notes about that. There's a lot of notes in that damn notebook about eyes. When you give your soul to someone, as Pal and Cam explain, you get their eyes. Nona's gold eyes definitely belong to not her body. We are really getting into the soul thing now. I've been describing it as swapping or stealing, eating, but Palamedes insists that the whole soul thing is much more complicated. He thinks that souls are permeable and malleable. Keep this in mind for later. I think it's going to be easiest if I give you a quick list of characters, where they were last time we saw them, if they are alive, and we'll do this in house order. I'm also just going to throw a list of all of the lictors and all of the cavaliers in here, in addition to the ones we know. Augustine, Cytherea, Mercy Morn, Gideon. There's Cassiopeia, Cyrus, Ulysses, and Anastasia. Anastasia did not actually become a lictor. According to God, it went wrong. Their cavaliers were Alfred was Augustine's, Christabel was Mercy Morn's, Pyrrha was Gideon's, Nigella was Cassiopeia's, Valency was Cyrus's, Titania was Ulysses, Loveday was Cytherea's, Samael was supposed to be Anastasia's. As far as we know, they are all dead except Pyrrha. Oh Lord. First house, God.
Gay is in, gay is hot. I want some gay, gay it's gonna be.
Alive, probably on the big God spaceship Mercy Morn.
I'm that bitch.
Yeah. Dead. Augustine.
I don't care who the IRS sends, I am not paying taxes.
In chaos hell. Gideon the Saint of Duty.
I do not kill people. That is my least favorite thing to do.
Dead. Pyrrha DeVay.
So, what do you guys want to do today?
Hang out with your mom?
Alive in the body of Gideon the Saint of Duty. Cytherea. Dead. I left out Wake because I don't understand where she is. Wake was inside of her own bones, and then she was in Gideon the Ninth's sword, and then she was inside of Cytherea. Yes, I did not address this in Harrow, but it is weird that Gideon had a crush on Dulcinea, who was Cytherea, and then her mom starts haunting Cytherea's dead body. Yeah, okay. Sometimes it's better to not think about it. I just don't think too hard about Pyrrha canoodling Wake in Cytherea. Anyway, when Pyrrha shot Cytherea, Wake's soul left Cytherea's body. Harrow and the Canaan House squad also unalived Wake in the river. I don't know if this means that Wake is perma-dead, or if Wake's soul is on the other side of the river, or in the... If anyone knows, please tell me. I don't know what's going on with Wake. Second house, Marta the Cavalier. Dead. Last time we saw her spirit in the river going to fight the resurrection beast. I think she's perma-dead now. Judith the Necromancer. Alive the last time we saw her on the shuttle with Camilla and Corona on that planet. Third house, Ianthe Tridentarius.
Who wants to get evil and freaky with me?
Alive, probably with God on the big God spaceship, and is a lictor. Coronabeth Tridentarius.
I feel really lesbian.
Alive, last time we saw her was on the shuttle with Judith and Camilla. We don't know where she is now. Nibirius Turn.
Too sexy for my shirt.
Dead. We don't know where Nibirius Turn's body is, but last time we saw it, it was on the big God spaceship. Fourth house, Jean-Marie Chateau.
And I will watch the crimson blood leak from your neck.
Dead. Isaac Teterus.
I have the power of God and anime on my side.
Dead. Both of them were in the river. Fifth house, Magnus Quinn.
That's my dad!
Dead. Abigail Pent.
I just feel like women.
Dead. Both of them were in the river. Sixth house, Camilla Heck.
You do know that I'm known for the bob.
Alive, Palamedes.
Science rules.
His body is gone forever. His soul is alive and inside of Camilla. Seventh house, Protesilaus, the Cavalier.
You've been scammed, conned, bamboozled.
That's 3 words, Fred.
Dead. Same thing as Marta. Went to fight the resurrection beast in the river. He might be perma-dead now. Dulcinea.
Why are we not getting married? I don't understand. Like, I'm hot. I don't know. Why?
Dead. Soul in the river. Last time we saw her, she told Harrow something and then vanished in a bunch of sparkles. I don't know where Dulcinea is. I don't know if they ever perma-die. Eighth house, Silas the necromancer,
No! God, please, no! No!
dead. Colum the cavalier,
Whenever I'm about to do something, I think, would an idiot do that? And if they would, I do not do that thing.
super freaking dead. Weird shit happened to his soul. Ninth house. Harrow's body
Dude, that little kid is hardcore goth.
is currently alive. Gideon's body
Would you rather be with a Hello Kitty pajamas girl or a goth femboy?
is dead, but we don't know where it is. We haven't seen it since the end of the first book. Nona doesn't particularly care who she is. She is glad that she's pretty. There was a man at a grocery store that hit on Nona. When Camilla came back and Nona translated what this man had said to her, Camilla looked at him and said something that made the man run away. Camilla said to Nona, if someone touches you like that again, you come get me or Pyrrha. You don't know what they want. And Nona says, no, I know what he wanted. It was a sex thing. Camilla, the body of Harrow Harkononogesimus. That's just the way people look when they want to see you naked and it's a sex thing. I don't really mind. Camilla said it's probably not a good idea for other people to see Nona naked. It's bad enough that Camilla used to have to help give Nona baths. There can't be sex things. Camilla had also written a lot more notes about that whole incident. Nona felt bad because Camilla and Pyrrha and Palamedes are all very useful. Pyrrha can shoot a marble and sword fight. Camilla can fight with pretty much any weapon you give her. There's also nothing that Camilla can't do. And Palamedes can think. They had all looked at her so odd. Nona had to learn everything. She didn't know how to feed herself, talk. Camilla and Pyrrha and Palamedes taught her how to do all that. They don't look at her as shocked all the time. Pyrrha hugs her. Pal tucks her in at night. Camilla holds her hand when they walk. And Nona's glad that they do this now because Nona loves touching. She can't sword fight, no matter how often that they make her hold the damn sword. She can't do the bone tricks that Palamedes can do, no matter how often they make her hold the bones. She can't shoot anything like Pyrrha. Nona was good at touching, wiping dishes, speaking any language that was spoken to her in person so she could see the person's face and eyes and lips. She can't read any of these languages. She can just speak them. So she does the translating, like for the creepy man who hit on her. That really confuses Palamedes and Camilla. Palamedes and Camilla can only speak one language. They can only speak house. When Nona says she's good at touching, she can also emulate someone's body perfectly. One time, after Palamedes was finished talking to Nona, he kissed her hand and said, give this to Camilla. When Camilla came back to her body, Nona said this was from Palamedes. And she kissed Camilla's hand exactly how Palamedes had kissed her hand. And Camilla stared at her and then had to go sit in the bathtub in the dark for a very long time. Nona can always tell when someone's lying just by looking at their body. And Nona really struggles to lie. Nona didn't want to just be good looking, dumb, and good at touching. Nona wanted to be useful. So Nona got herself a job, a non-paying job. Nona stumbled across a teacher who tried to recruit her to school. Cam had to tell the teacher that Nona's 19. So the teacher offered Nona the position of teacher's aide. Palamedes said, okay, half the day she can go to school. It'll be fine. This is great for her. Although Nona's technically the teacher's aide, she really only likes science class because that's when the science teacher, the angel, comes and Nona gets to take care of Noodle. The angel's real name is Aim. That's just the nickname that the kids call Aim. The teacher's goal, the other teacher who's not the angel, Nona calls her the nice lady teacher. The nice lady teacher's goal in making Nona the teaching aide was that Nona would maybe learn something. Nona has a hard time remembering facts. It feels a bit like she's been through this all before and forgot. So Nona takes care of dogs and cleans whiteboards and takes kids to bathrooms. She's very good with the little kids. After about a week of Nona going to school, Nona gets cornered by a gang of kids who say, we're taking you to Hot Sauce. Hot Sauce is the leader of the gang of kids. Hot Sauce is 14. She's covered in burn marks.
Give me your fucking money!
The other kids want Nona to get them drugs to sell. Specifically, Honesty really wants Nona to get him drugs to sell. But Hot Sauce just wants Nona to be in the gang because the angel trusts Nona enough to look after Noodle, and they all like the angel. So Nona must be cool. The kids in this gang aspire to join up with the rebels, not Blood of Eden, because they think that Blood of Eden is wimpy. Blood of Eden are losers and they like zombies, actually. And they really want to unalive zombies. The kids tell Nona how to identify if someone's a zombie. They don't bleed and they don't eat. Nona says, well, I eat. Of course, they weren't talking about Nona. They weren't saying she's a zombie. She's just a dumbass. Kevin says he saw Nona eating a pebble once.
And then that thing goes all the way in my mouth.
Hot Sauce interrupts and says that the necromancers are going to come back. They're going to try to invade this planet again, and that when they come back, the kids have to be ready. Beautiful Ruby asks, what about Varun? What about Varun the Eater? Hot Sauce says it's okay, it's here for them, and they all look up at the sky. I would like to ask you, at what point did you figure out who Nona was? Nona, Pyrrha, Cam, on their way out. Pyrrha's going to work. Camilla's dropping off Nona at school. Nona gets very sad every time Pyrrha leaves. It's better now, because as Calamity said, Nona now has a sense of object permanence and she knows Pyrrha will come back. At school, Hot Sauce tells Nona that there's someone spying on them from the building across the street. That's odd. Anyway, the other kids have been saying that Nona doesn't look so good. Nona looks sick. But Nona doesn't see it. Nona thinks she's perfect.
I'm a 10, so I pull in a 10.
As she is. Even though one time Beautiful Ruby told Nona that, you got the face of a rat and the body of a dead person. People have said that about me. The other kids also say that Nona's nothing to write home about. Nona says she doesn't care because she can't write.
That sign can't stop me because I can't read.
Okay, also, all of the kids get very excited every time that something happens while they're at school. The whole buildings start to shake because there are tunnels under the city and there's something that they call the convoy. Nona asks Pyrrha what a convoy is. She's disappointed because it's boring. It's just a line of vehicles driving. But it's important to know now for later that there's a convoy of trucks going on like what seems to be a timed route under the city in the tunnels. And the kids know about it. Nona goes home with Camilla at lunch as usual. The story is that Nona is Camilla's sister and Pyrrha is like their friend. Everyone thinks that Pyrrha is their pimp. At home after lunch, Nona is practicing with her bones with Calamities. When she asks, where's Crown? I haven't seen her in a long time. Calamity says Crown is not our friend right now. And Nona protests. She loves Crown. Calamities asks, why do you love Crown? She has lovely hair. And when she hugs you, she smells like cinnamon, and her breasts feel nice, and she's so big and pretty. Calamities looks at her and takes a bunch of notes to Nona's despair. There's always a tick or something somewhere whenever she mentions breasts.
Hope everybody's having a great Pride Month. Shout out to the gays.
Pal says that's not love, Nona. That's just what most people like about Crown. Also, Nona, how do you know what cinnamon smells like? Nona says, I don't know, I just do. Am I not allowed to love Crown? Pal says, nobody has the right to tell you who to love or who not to love, and equally, nobody's obliged to love you. If you were forced into loving them, it wouldn't be love. Calamities. Nona asks, why does the blue light hurt people but not you and Cam? So because Camilla's body isn't a necromancer's body, the resurrection beast, which would usually cause blue madness, we remember the lictors freaking out, herald fear, doesn't affect her body. Pyrrha does have the right kind of body to be hurt by the light. She has a lictor body, but she has the wrong kind of soul, so it doesn't affect her. Nona says that's good that it doesn't affect you, because I love Camilla. Calamity says, why do you love Camilla? I love the way she moves. He said, me too. Calamities and Camilla, in order to communicate with each other from one body, they write a lot of letters and they talk into that recorder that Camilla uses to record Nona's dreams, like back and forth. These two bitches, the tragicest cousins ever. Then Nona asks, okay, well, do I have the right body or the right soul? And Pal says, we don't know. But first, we did think that you had blue madness, but you're fine now. So maybe you're like Pyrrha and your soul is protecting your body. Cam comes back, and as usual, Nona kisses Cam's hand like Calamities would. Camilla says thanks and almost doesn't flinch. The layers. It's bedtime. Nona asks Camilla to tell her the story of how they met. At the time we knew you were in trouble. You'd disappeared. We'd been trying to get you. We found you in Pyrrha. You were hurt. Pyrrha helped us escape from an attack. We lost people. Ships. Something very important. But we got you away. You weren't a threat to anyone, neither was Pyrrha. But not many people believed me or the warden. Back then, We Suffer trusted us. We Suffer even let Pyrrha live. Then I found a way for the warden to come back.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
That was a relief. The warden convinced the oversight body, convinced the 6th house to come with us. Then the warden picked 16 people to talk with Blood of Eden to discuss the future. You were waking up. You met me for the first time.
I accept you as mum.
But then some things go wrong. The resurrection beast appeared. They found out that Blood of Eden lied to them. Nona says, you're telling me the abridged version for kids. Second John dream. The climate has gotten very bad. This is the end times. Extinction is nigh. John is like the lead person on this initiative to make cryogenic chambers in which to put all the people on Earth and fly them to an exoplanet while they figure out how to fix the climate change. Give the Earth some breathing room. People who are in on John's cryo plan, they maybe had different names at this point in the story, but I will tell you the names of who they were post-resurrection. C. Cassiopeia. Nigella. Nigella is N. A. Augustine. M. Mercy Morn. John has a bunch of dead bodies that they are using to test whether the cryogenic chambers work. That's a bit icky. You don't want the public knowing about that, but they don't need to worry about that because they have a cop, P, Pyrrha, making sure that nobody gets wind of that. Pyrrha and John have both been longtime friends with G, Gideon. John is working so hard on this. He's not sleeping, he's not eating, he's having a lot of breakthroughs though. A&M, super worried. John doesn't really want to part with all those dead bodies that they're doing experiments on. He's become kind of friends with them. And that's unfortunate because they do get shut down. Their funding gets pulled. We're not doing the cryogenic chambers anymore. It's too expensive. It doesn't work. Sorry, John. We are shutting off the power to the research center. And John says bye. Touches his favorite ones. Bye, dead bodies. The power gets shut off. Most of the bodies instantly decompose. But every one that John touched was fine. 4 days until the tomb opens. In the dream, Nona is sitting in the water and we're holding hands. I mean, like, I'm touching my own hands, but they're not my hands. And there's a bunch of red eyes around us in the darkness. And I'm hungry. I'm really hungry. Camilla, taking notes, says, Nona, when you look at your hands in the dream, do you like them? Nona hates having hands. Nona goes in the kitchen where Pyrrha is making breakfast. So we get another, Nona excellently reading people to filth. She asked Camilla this yesterday, but Nona likes to hear multiple answers from multiple people. So she asks Pyrrha, why does We Suffer hate you? Pyrrha says, because I remind We Suffer that her god could mess up. And by that, Pyrrha means Commander Wake could mess up. And I like to think she doesn't hate me anymore because I'm so charming. Nona says, if you're so charming, why are you single? Pyrrha, all dramatically, all joking, says, because I've got a broken heart and I'll never love again. But Nona can tell that Pyrrha's actually telling the truth. Pyrrha had used to be like Camilla and Palamedes, and now her equivalent of Palamedes was gone. It seemed impossible to think of Camilla and Palamedes being apart. Of course they were apart, separated forever by a matter of minutes. Palamedes comes in and says, oh god, we're having baby food. Pyrrha's getting half pay because of some things that are happening at the construction zone. There's a lot of rioting. Whatever Palamedes and Camilla want Pyrrha to let them go do at Site C, Pyrrha's like, you should just be more worried about what you are doing to Camilla's brain. Palamedes is like, no, I check her brain every time we do it, it's fine. Pyrrha says, even if her brain's fine, it's her soul you have to worry about. Anyway, they argue about it. Cam, Pyrrha, and Nona, as they usually do, they head out. As they're walking through the market, Pyrrha asks if Nona wants anything, and she calls her Nono. This whole book is torture. Camilla says no. Nona, you can get a present when it's been a year. Nona panics. She says, no, I need a 6-month birthday present. She's very insistent. And Pyrrha says, do you think she ever got presents? Camilla says, don't lead. Nona just wants colored rubber hair ties that she can put in her braids. And Pyrrha says, okay, pick something a little fancier for your birthday because we can really just get you those whenever. Pyrrha, mommy. Nona's at school. Honesty has a black eye. Honesty tells them that he didn't get punched or anything exciting. They were stealing guns from this convoy of big trucks. The person goes down there to get the guns from the trucks. They come back freaked out because they said that when they looked in the truck, there were all these people sitting in the back of it and they had no eyes, but they all, when this person popped their head in the truck, they all looked up. That scared Honesty so bad that he ran into a pole. Creepy. Now it's time for Nona to walk Noodle. This time, instead of just sending Nona to look at that building with that person in it, Hot Sauce wants Nona to pretend to use a radio. So Nona, standing outside that building with Noodle, pretends to radio Crown. She's like asking Crown why she hasn't been popping by. And then Nona sits down and takes a nap. Completely coincidentally, we get another John flashback. 3 days after the power got shut down to John's research facility, everybody starts believing that John actually did something weird to those bodies because of his eyes. John's eyes used to be just like normal amber, but by that 3rd day, they were yellow. As John is telling Harrow this, they're on a hill overlooking a destroyed world. There's wind and rain and tornadoes and the sky is green and there's like destroyed buildings everywhere. John starts to cry for a bit and then just keeps telling the story. Hell yeah, scientific breakthrough. We stopped decomposition. No matter how many tests they did on them, I'm talking tests to try and make them decompose. Those tests always made one of the C's vom. John could feel those dead bodies. He could actually feel everyone in the building. He knew that nothing in those bodies was changing, no matter what they did. John's started talking to those bodies. He's named them. He's like, let me introduce you to Ulysses and Titania. John says, quote, I was nuts, but I was waking up. When John introduces Ulysses and Titania to Mercy and Augustine, he makes Ulysses and Titania make a fist. Mercy, instead of laughing, vommed because John had made Ulysses and Titania make a fist, but he was on the other side of the room. Anyway, Nona wakes up from her nap and goes back into the school. Hot Sauce is like, Nona, what the hell did you do? What happened? Because the person watching them from that building ran off when you did the radio thing. Cam comes to get Nona, as usual. Nona really wants to go to the beach. They used to take Nona to the beach in the evening. She could be in the salt water for hours. Nona loves to swim. They can't go to the beach anymore. This happened like a month ago. Cam never goes swimming with Nona because the ocean is full of these giant jellyfish. The jellyfish will brush up against you and it just makes Nona a bit tingly. Like, she likes the jellyfish, but they have to go to the beach in the evening because those jellyfish brushes would unalive anybody who isn't Nona. They don't want anyone to see her swimming in there. The reason they let Nona go swimming, Calamity says it's hydrotherapy, but also because that's how they calmed Nona down after one of her big tantrums. And they found that if they would take Nona to the beach and dunk her in the water, she'd be fine for a couple days. Like, she'd be really well behaved. As Nona swims back to shore, she sees Cam surrounded by 6 people, and she signals behind her back to Nona to stay put where she is. They have a lot of secret hand gestures. And then one of them says, shoot her. Nona can understand what those men are saying. Cam doesn't speak the same language as the cops. So Nona runs out of the ocean to warn Cam. The cop turns and shoots Nona. Nona does what Pyrrha taught her and goes completely limp. flashing, movement, a lot of sound. Nona just sits there, her bullet wound all healed. And when she gets out of the water, Cam is squatting on the beach with all of those men lying around her in puddles of steaming blood. One of her eyes is gray and the other is slate colored. Pal Cam said, "Stay calm," in a voice that was very much not familiar to Nona. They're steaming too, like the whole body. But they look really, really happy. They wobble. And their eyes turn back to being just gray. Those guys weren't cops. They were Merv Wing, and they wanted intel from Cam. Nona always thinks that people are mad at her for things. Nona is a little bit child-brained in that way. Nona thinks that Cam is mad at her because Cam's not talking, but then Cam falls against the wall. Camilla says in a normal Camilla voice, "Don't scream." Cam is just covered in blood, and she hasn't been injured anywhere. This is blood sweat. Her Harrow Hark Nonagesimus sweating blood. Camilla's body is paying the price for the Pal Cam thing that they just did. Nona, despite being car sick and despite being Nona gets them home. When Nona tells Pyrrha about the Cam Pal I thing, Pyrrha said a completely new swear word. Cam just says, "Don't tell him I was weak." Pyrrha says he's going to know. It's going to unalive both of you. And Camilla says, "It was good. We were happy," and then falls asleep. Pyrrha goes to get a shot of alcohol to clarify. Pyrrha takes the shot over to the window, toasts the big blue light in the sky, and says, "Here's to Camilla Hecht, another one of devotion's casualties." And then she talks directly to the light and says, "No, I don't blame you, man. He was always looking for things to throw himself on." Pyrrha takes 2 more shots and then lies down next to Nona. Nona asks, "If Camilla's fine, then why did you just say goodbye to her?" And Pyrrha says, "How did you know it was goodbye?" After that, there was no more swimming. There was no more beach. Camilla and Nona go to pick up dinner on their way home from school, and Nona really struggles to eat it. She's saying, "I'm full." And Camilla asks, "Have you been eating sand again?" The body of Harrow Hark Nonagesimus. Nona's offended. She hasn't been eating any sand this week. Pyrrha comes home from work, covered in blood. Don't worry, Pyrrha has not unalived anybody today. There was just a big riot at the work site. A lot of people were unalived. There are these big cages in the park that they put necromancers in, or people that they just suspect of being necromancers, and they set them on fire. Pyrrha knows they got at least 4 people. She knows that if Camilla hears about this, Camilla's going to want to go save those 4 necromancers. Palamedes also wants to go save the 4 necromancers. Can't really, make it out there with Cam's body and stuff, and he can't do necromancy out in the open. So Pyrrha's trying to get Palamedes to tell Camilla to not go. She's yelling at Palamedes because Palamedes says, "F it, I want to go." And she says, "You are not a lictor." Pyrrha says, "I'm trying to tell you that the 6th house isn't at Site C. They're not there. That's not the people that they got in the cages." Palamedes is like, "It doesn't matter. Even if they're not Cam's family, if they're not my family, those are someone's family." Pyrrha just says, "Keep Cam home." Nona comes out, asks Pyrrha, "Can I go sit in the hallway? Because one of the rooms has a radio." Nona does go out in the hallway, and she does sit outside that door, but Nona also peels down the covering on the window that's at the end of the hall. And Nona has not told Palamedes or Camilla or Pyrrha this secret, but Nona really likes how the blue light feels from the thing in the sky. Nona and nobody else can hear it sing. Nona says, "Good night, Varun," and then goes back into her house, where she sees Cam lying down, looking really, really sad. So Nona lies down with her and opens her arms. Cam, surprisingly, curls up into Nona. They're cuddling. Nona offers to go to the park for Camilla. She says, "I'm not scared of dying." Camilla asks, "Why not?" And Nona says, "Because I like letting go of the pull-up bars. I like letting go." Cam says, "I don't let go. It's my one thing." Cam is playing with Nona's braids, and she wraps one kind of around her hand and holds on to it. As she's saying this, they all go to sleep. There is a scene where Nona goes to have a bath. On her way back, Nona's so tired that Nona has not put her shirt on right, and Pyrrha has to tell her, Nona, do up your shirt. Don't give Cam a heart attack. Poor Cam has to put up with so much Nona Gesimus nonsense, and now this girl's just walking around topless. At least the Nona Gesimus titties of death don't apply when Nona's in charge, because someone would have died multiple times. John, in the dream. It's nighttime. John is pointing to where the stars should be, but they can't see them past all of the green smoke and debris. John's explaining how he did the trick with the fingers and the dead bodies. I hadn't done a resurrection. I could just move them around. I knew I'd touched something and that could help you. Person I'm talking to, I just needed to figure out how. At this point, John's squad consists of 2 scientists, an engineer, a detective, a lawyer, and an artist. They start putting John through all of these tests to see what he can do, and they are like, okay, if we get found out, the government is going to come and silence us, so we should probably get this all out to the public and the media before they can silence us. They take to the internet. They decide to stream. They go live on Twitch. Subscribe to John's Twitch channel. What is the internet? And John said, see, I did make a utopia. What do you think John's custom Twitch emotes would be? Because I'm imagining they're the bodies, Ulysses and Titania, they're doing the fist thing, and then maybe some cows, steaks. We can do some skeletons. John should have hired me for his creative team. Not that I want to be in John's Twitch cult. It is day 3. 3 days until the tomb opens. Nona wakes up and tells Cam the dream. This time, Nona's holding a girl with a painted face down in the water, but the girl doesn't want to stay down in the water. And she's trying to describe this. She's like, they're my arms, but they're not my arms. And Cam just says, okay, can you show me how she's holding you, on me? Nona puts Cam's hands on her hips, really close to each other, real holding on to each other. Nona likes seeing Cam up close. What the hell does she call her? Camilla was so sweetly handsome and good. Nona always wanted to be close to her. Nona thinks Camilla is the best person ever. Who doesn't? Nona sometimes thinks, I want to marry Camilla.
It's not that you literally desire your mother, right?
Pyrrha refers to Nona's infatuation with Camilla as puppy love, but Nona says no, that's different. It just made you want to open the puppy's lips and play with the puppy's teeth. Nona holding on to Camilla, Camilla holding on to Nona. Nona says, it's pretty nice like this, huh? I'm a 10, so I pull in a 10. It's funny though, because I don't feel like this nice in the dream. And Cam says, but you said you like it. Nona says, yeah, but it's not sexy though. Cam stops touching Nona, to Nona's disappointment, picks up her clipboard and asks, okay, Nona, what do you think is sexy? Nona, so fast, says the huge old poster on the side of the building. The poster for shampoo. Cam looks at her and says, the painting of the 2 flowers? Nona says, I think they're sexy flowers. What do you think is sexy? Cam says, eating breakfast. Nona gets mad. No, Camilla, you don't think that. We're having a heart-to-heart. You just want me to eat. And Cam says, yeah, now go away. I'm going to talk to Palamides. Nona says, well, ask him what he thinks is sexy. Cam says, I don't need to. I already know what Palamides thinks is sexy. Nona says, okay, tell me. I will eat so much breakfast. It's like my real self needs to know what Palamides thinks is sexy. Cam writes something down and underlines it 3 times. She says, strong work effort. High test scores. Nona, by looking at Pyrrha, can tell that Pyrrha didn't sleep and that Pyrrha did something. Pyrrha went to the park and shot the people in the cages so that they would not die from being burned to death. Pyrrha says to Nona as she's flipping pancakes, she says, Nona, be careful with those kids that you hang out with at school. The kid with the burns, she was there at the cages and she was hanging out with some really, really sketchy people. Nona is like, damn, do not talk shit about Hot Sauce, my best friend, the gang leader. So Nona just changes the subject and asks Pyrrha what she thinks is sexy. Pyrrha lists 2 things that she thinks are sexy. People that she describes as landmine people. Some people were put into the universe to rig it to explode, then walk away. I always fall for that. And 2, love a redhead. Nona says, I don't think redheads are very sexy. Calamities from the other room yells, what? Bursts through the door. That's a very interesting thing you just said, Nona. What do you mean you don't think redheads are sexy? Crucial data. Calamities, what do you think is sexy? Calamities says, those little outfits that nurses wear. Cam makes Nona eat 1.5 pikelets. But luckily, Nona doesn't have to eat the rest because Blood of Eden comes in. They put hoods on Pyrrha, Cam, and Nona. They de-knife Camilla, even though they don't take out the secret knife deep in Camilla's pants. They also tape Cam and Nona's hands to their body, and they handcuff Pyrrha. They put Nona and Cam in the car. They put Pyrrha in the trunk. And the way Nona describes this, they've done this a couple times before. Camilla, Pyrrha, this is like my ideal household. Camilla and Pyrrha? Oh my god. Wow, I never even thought of that. Cam had made this signal with her hands to not talk, so they don't talk to each other. In the waiting room, they're no longer hooded, but they are still hand taped until a person comes in. The most beautiful person on the planet. Crown, aka Coronabeth Tridentarius. She's always so happy to see Nona, but Nona's the only person who's ever happy to see Crown. Nona loves being hugged by Crown. Crown cuts the tape off of Nona, and she goes to do the same to Camilla, but Camilla's already done it with her secret knife. Corona does not trust Pyrrha. Cam does. There seems like a lot of tension between them. Corona says, it's good to see you, even if you don't feel the same. We Suffer wants to have a chat with you, so we should probably go in the meeting room. Lots of people at this table with weapons, but you can't see their faces. They're all wearing masks and goggles. And there's this big portrait on the wall. Very serious redheaded woman, Gideon's mommy. The love of Pyrrha's life. Commander, wake me up inside. We Suffer is the commander who's in charge. Sometimes she's called Commander We Suffer, We Suffer.
I gotta save humanity, babe.
There's another person at this table who keeps interrupting and saying really aggressive things. That person is Our Lady of the Passions. That's Pash. No matter how many times I read this specific scene, I can never recall any of it. Every time I black out and I never understand what the hell they're talking about. I tried so hard for this. Actively pay attention to the meeting room scene. I will give you the points that I got down. They're talking about the 6th house thing because whatever happened between Cam and Blood of Eden resulted in the 6th house, that group of 16 that went to negotiate with Tesiphon, resulted in them disappearing. And when they have these meetings, the Blood of Eden people bring something to prove that they still have them alive. They are keeping the 6th house hostage. So they bring like a recording from someone named Juno Zeta. That's Pal's mom. It's so weird to think of Calamities and Camilla having parents. Calamities has a mom. Camilla has 2 dads and a half sister. They think that Nona's a lictor, and they want to use Nona as a weapon. But Nona has not shown any aptitude for necromancy, and she cannot use a sword. If you're asking why would Blood of Eden want to ally with a lictor, what good would that do them? Aren't they anti-zombie? We Suffer says that allying with lictors has worked super well for them in the past. It was useful that time that Commander Wake got in there and got a bunch of intel about resurrection beasts and everything. But then, of course, their greatest contact was Kithareia. Kithareia did so much good work. She took out almost every single head of the 9 houses. Cam's like, yeah, that murdering 2 14-year-olds thing really worked out for her. Meeting over, everyone can go to the bathroom. Cam asks to see someone, and Crown agrees as long as Pyrrha doesn't go. So Nona goes with Cam and Corona to see this person. That person had always been really intense with Nona, so Calamities had said that she wasn't allowed to see her anymore. That person is Captain Deuteros, aka Judith, necromancer of the 2nd house. Judith has blue madness, very sick, very mad, is being kept by Blood of Eden, a little cell in the basement. When Judith sees Nona, she says, should I do a scary voice for this?
Dust of my dust, such similar star salt, what they did to you, and what they wrung from you, and what shape they made you fill. We see you still, we seek you still, we murdered, we who murder, you inadvertent tool, you misused green thing, come back to us, take vengeance with us, we see you, I see you.
Anyway, Camilla goes up to her and says she's dehydrated and what's happened to her blood pressure. Is the compulsive shouting typical? Is she in pain? Corona says, lately, although I'm not sure she's in actual pain. Calamities. I know it's you. You've been really obvious today. I'm not going to tell Blood of Eden. I just wanted to make sure that it was actually you. Then Corona says something sad about Camilla and Calamities again. Motherfucker. I knew because she stopped being so unhappy. The whole time I knew her, she was grieving. She couldn't hide that. Camilla was gone, and then we met Harrow Hark, and she came back. Judith kind of comes back for a minute. She's aware of her surroundings and is like, where am I? What happened? She's saying that the only reason that Blood of Eden is keeping her alive is because they want her to be their Steely. It's how the 9 houses travel through space quickly. Only the lictors can go in the river. Sorry if I'm giving you flashbacks to the 500 explanations of river travel from the Harrow video. They figured out other ways to travel. A Steely? Okay, a Steely. Jesus Christ. I think this is what it is. But if I'm wrong and I describe this, it's going to sound like my brain, like I'm messed up. But I am, so we'll just go for it. Okay, a Steely, it's like a Steely spirit magic-y kind of thing. They get a necromancer, and they write a bunch of runes into them, and then they have to keep the Steely bathed in fresh blood. I don't know if they are taking the blood from the Steely or if they are putting blood on them. It's like keeping up enough energy to be able to move them through space quickly. In space, there's no energy, no allergy. They can't draw from anything. So this way they're like doing spirit magic. I don't really know how this works. But Judith thinks that BOE wants to use her because she's the only necromancer they have that they know of. They don't know about Pal. So that when they get a shuttle, they can get off the planet using space travel magic. Judith also, she wants them to call the cohort and just say that BOE's been coercing them. Even though Cam and Pal in the 6th house, they left the 9th houses. Yeah, so like they're not with them anymore. Corona's not with them anymore. Corona's working for Blood of Eden. Judith looks at Nona and says, 9th? Where is the mercy of the tomb? Where is your sword in the coffin? Who are your masters now, and what do you master? Where is my cavalier, reverend daughter? Where is yours?
Because I saw her in the waves. She was there in the grey water. I saw them all. They hurt me.
Why is she British?
Where is my hunger? I eat and eat and eat without decrease. My green thing. My green and breathing thing.
Calamities says, okay, Judith, go to bed. Cam comes back and says, update. So this is what happens if Pal and Cam have switched somewhere and Pal's not around to tell Camilla in writing. Nona will just give Cam a little summary of what happened while she was gone, and vice versa. Now that Corona knows about the Pal Cam thing, Cam wants Corona to come with them. Nona's like, yeah, we got enough room. Corona says, no, I'm sticking around here. She makes up some excuses, but Nona can tell that Corona is sticking around for Judith. And Cam tells Corona, you stick around for anyone who doesn't want you. Ow, Cam. Deep cuts.
Huge slam on Emberly out of nowhere.
Corona just tells Cam to be careful with Pyrrha, who they've put in the trunk again already. Nona really doesn't like that Corona is talking shit about Pyrrha, so she changes the subject. And she says, hey, guys, what the freak was the captain talking about? What's the water? What green thing? Crown and Camilla turn to look at Nona. Camilla, looking terrified. Crown says, Nona? The captain didn't say anything. She just screamed. Back to the apartment. Nona this whole time has been saying, I'm missing school. I've got to go to school. Brown's like, hey, we're passing Nona's school. Stop here and I'll walk Nona to school. Cam says, no way. No. Nona's like, yes, I want to show Corona to all my friends. Cam says, no. Nona's already jumped out of the car and the car has driven off. Nona feels briefly bad for disobeying Cam. Crown says, don't worry. Calling her Crown. Sorry. Corona says, don't worry. I have as much right to you as Camilla does. You're not that much younger than Camilla. She babies you. Nona is like, yeah, you know what? I kind of been thinking about that too myself, but also how dare you say that? I love Camilla. My favorite part of this book is just when Nona forces these characters to see the truth of themselves and other people. Absolutely no more lying to each other about your feelings. I'm going to expose you. Also, we still aren't communicating well. Maybe you could be the one to melt her icy heart. You're cute on your best days, adorable, but I'm not sure you're her type. Nona blushes and says, you're not her type either. Corona says, how do you know my type? Here we get a big, long Nona truth bomb. You look at Commander We Suffer like you want her to think you're into her, but you aren't at all. It's just something you're doing with your eyelashes. But that's no help figuring out your type, because I don't know what the commander looks like. You don't like Pash at all, but I don't know what she looks like either. You're scared of Pyrrha, and you do think she's nice looking, but you're confused when you think that, so you don't look at her very much. You want Camilla to cuddle you, but not in a sexy way. I think you want Camilla to look at you like she looks at me, and you're in love with the Corona. Puts her hand over Nona's mouth. Nona gets mad because why the freak did Corona ask her if she didn't want her to tell her the truth? Corona apologizes. She's like, hey, sorry, I don't want to hear it. Blah, blah, blah. She talks about her sister. They get to Nona's school. The angel says Corona can't stay because no one will pay attention if she's there. When Angel asks who Corona is, Corona says that she's Camilla's partner. The angel's eyebrows, Nona says, are screaming. Camilla? Which Nona thinks is unfair because Corona is really almost pretty enough for Camilla. School time. Hot Sauce thinks that the person in the other building is watching the angel because they didn't show up today until the angel showed up. The only things that the angel really provides to them are the hour of science and noodle. So why the hell is the angel getting dropped off in an armored vehicle? Lunchtime rolls around and Nona notices that nobody has come to pick her up. Camilla has never been late, ever. And then Nona has an odd thought. She sees the teacher and she's like, that teacher is a baby just like Camilla. Oh no. Not very many students at the school today because it turns out that there's a broadcast scheduled for this evening. And a lot of people are either going to watch it or are staying home because of the chaos that will break out during this broadcast. As Hot Sauce and Nona are lying there having their bonding time, Hot Sauce says that she wishes Nona was her sister. Hot Sauce only had brothers. They were all unalived by people wielding swords. Hot Sauce says, first necromancer in range, I shoot. Nona's like really happy that Hot Sauce wants to be her sister. Nona says she also wants to be sisters with Hot Sauce, best friends. Nona tells Hot Sauce the secret. When Nona tells Hot Sauce the secret, Hot Sauce looks at Nona and then says, okay, well, there's a clinic nearby. You could talk to the angel. We can do something about it. But Nona says it's not going to help. And don't tell anyone. Nona and Hot Sauce fall asleep. In the John dreams, he says that they got some attention from the streaming. A couple conspiracy theorists actually came by and John showed them everything on camera. Only 5 people were like, yeah, that's legit. That man just made those bodies walk around. But that was enough. They took off. They were all over Reddit. Hundreds of people started showing up. It turns out that John could help those people. He could remove tumors, fix nerve damage. This is when we get another person added to John's squad, Mercy's best friend, the nun. The nun said, "Stop it." John's like, "Oh, because I'm being Jesus?" And she's like, "No, because you need office hours. Dude, you gotta set scheduled time or you're gonna get crucified." And now people start asking questions. How come those bodies you were supposed to dispose of 6 months ago are walking around? John and the squad are all living in the facility right now. 2 scientists, an engineer, a nun, a lawyer, a banker, a cop, and an artist. The cops send in a riot squad. John decides to build a giant wall. It's not a wall though, it's a dome out of perpetual bone. The person that John is telling this to, who's maybe Harrow, says, "You made it from the bodies?" John says, "No, I didn't want to touch them. Those are my friends. But like, I'm not super proud of what I did do." Field over, they had like 80 cows. They're in New Zealand. "I got creative."
Oh, brown cows.
John. Sure, I'd cured a bunch of people of cancer, but I was freaky. They treated us like we'd done some kind of huge crime. I mean, I had done kind of a huge crime. It's not my fault that turning several hundred animals inside out makes you look like the bad guys. But it's hard to be all, "Let's listen to magical inside out animal shield man. He obviously has some good ideas." He wanted to talk about how he was going to save the world. Now he had this big platform, maybe all this money, maybe they could do it. The government isn't all, "Love that small business entrepreneur spirit." The government says, "This is a cult." I guess you could say, we had beef. "I can't believe nobody's ever going to laugh at my jokes again. It's just me and you and no more jokes." She said, "I still love you." And he laughed and said, "That was a good one." Then he wept again. Nona wakes up at school to Honesty bursting through the door, screaming, "They're back. The zombies are coming. There's going to be war." The teacher and the angel say, "Okay, kids, please promise me that you are not going to go to the square where the big screen is that they're going to screen the broadcast on." And all the kids promise they won't go. Although Nona doesn't say anything because she's not one of the kids. And Nona notices that Hot Sauce has her fingers crossed behind her back. But it's science time, and since there's not really much to do and there's not many people around, the angel asks them to draw animals. Nona, on her own paper, sketches some idea of what she thinks that animals should look like. It's like 5 p.m. Nona's getting really worried that Cam hasn't come to get her. The angel says, "You know, Nona, maybe you can take Noodle out again today. You can take him on another walk." And Hot Sauce volunteers to go with Nona. Hot Sauce decides that they're going to the broadcast. So they take Noodle back inside with a note saying where they've gone. Hot Sauce writes it. Obviously, Nona can't write. And then they book it. Nona has this feeling that when you commit to something, you have to commit 100%. Feels like there's someone in the back of her head saying, once you've stepped in, you're in. This isn't the hokey pokey. Who taught her that? Nona's so happy that she's remembered something from her past. Hot Sauce and Nona get to the square. It's hectic. So they climb up onto a light pole. The broadcast starts with just a voice from the speakers. Something's wrong with the screen. This person over the speakers is saying something about a contract. Then the screen lights up. There's a person sitting at a desk. They look mildly annoyed, but they're in a spotless white suit with a fancy neckerchief. They're very pale, with perfect, thick, brown, shiny hair. And their lips, although they look nice and glossy,
Glitter on your lips?
Cherry flavored. Want a taste?
are way too pale. Their eyes are blue with little bits of brown in them. Nona refers to this person as the young, well-dressed, dead white person. That is the body of Nibirius Turn. Nibirius starts listing all of the Emperor's conditions to retaking the planet. Anyone who serves the Emperor, cohort or otherwise, and who has made themselves absent without leave, present themselves to me immediately. I say this with all the authority invested in me as Prince Ianthe Nibirius I, the Lictor Prince, the Saint of Awe. blah, blah, blah. Also, Resurrection Beast, that's not gonna stop us. Like, we're still coming to get you. Don't worry about that. As everyone's panicking, Prince Ianthe Nibirius crooks her finger and the camera swivels to reveal a second person sitting at the same desk, wearing the same thing as Ianthe, but their warm brown skin is all pallid and waxy, like there's something wrong with it. They've got this crooked mouth, like oddly bloodless. It has as much expression as that portrait of the ginger woman in We Suffer's office. The only thing that's alive about this person is their hair, which is super red. And her eyes are yellow. Exactly like Nona's eyes. And it's the face of the girl in Nona's dreams. It's the face of the girl that Cam and Pal had drawn for her. Prince Ianthe Nibirius calls this person Her Most Serene Highness, Crown Prince Kirionagaya, heir to the first house, the Emperor's only daughter. What the fucking coconuts? Should we discuss the fact that it seems like Ianthe Tridentarius has Gideon Nav's body and is calling her Prince Kirionagaya, and that they have matching outfits? Should we discuss that now or should we discuss that later? Everyone is very panicked by this information and people start stampeding. Nona gets them down. Nona, with her knowledge of bodies, wiggles them through the crowd until they get to an alleyway. They are running so fast. They run until they pass this truck, and the person in the truck says, like, "Stop, come here." The angel. They've been circling the block for a while, and they drop Nona off at her building. The angel doesn't seem too mad at Nona. They're like, it's okay. Tomorrow's a new day. As long as you show up to school, it'll be fine. Nona runs up the stairs, runs down the hallway, bursts into the apartment. Camilla gets up from the table where there are all of these stacks of empty water glasses and newspaper shredded into perfect strips. Cam catches Nona by the arms and holds her so hard that it hurts. Nona asks, "Where's Pyrrha?" "Pyrrha went to pick you up before lunch. I thought she was with you." "My other wife and my wife aren't in the same house." Okay. In the John dream scenario, the water around them keeps rising. There's bodies in there. It's not nice. He does not like the water, and she knows that, even though she really likes the water. He raises some land to get rid of it. On the new place of land, it's this big concrete building guarded by giant shield of cows, one could say. They don't go in, they just sit outside the building. And John keeps telling his story. John says that the timeline that they were working with kept changing because every time that you breathed funny, we all panicked. That's when we figured out where all of that money from our cryo chambers went. The other project that they decided to go with was this super fast, it's not light travel, it's something else. John says that it would take him 10,000 years to figure out how these ships were going so fast. Only a couple hundred people could fit on these ships. So they're saying, okay, well, yeah, we're putting all of the rich people on this first flight of ships, but don't worry, we're building more ships and we're gonna get everyone off the planet. Don't worry. The rich people aren't just going to leave and never come back and not solve the climate crisis and let everyone else die. John gets up, gets down on the ground in front of the person he's telling this story to and says, "They left you." She says, "I can't remember." And he says, "I can't forget." Day 4, 48 hours until the tomb opens. Cam doesn't know that Nona was at the broadcast because Cam hasn't asked her. She just told Camilla that she waited at school and then a teacher drove her home, which is true. Palamides and Nona are talking about where Pyrrha maybe went. Those cohort soldiers, including Prince Ianthe Nibirius, got here via cohort shuttle. Nona says, well, maybe she went to see the shuttle land. Pal says no. That that wouldn't stop her from picking you. Fuck Pyrrha wanting to get a shuttle and go become a homesteader on a little moon.
I do gay stuff.
Nona wakes up in the dark, all alone. Cam does pop her head in from the kitchen and says, Nona, record yourself. I'm busy. Things are already getting all mixed up. Is all of this just a nightmare? She's trying to figure out what button to press on the recorder. A voice starts playing from it. All Camilla's voice. But it's very clearly two people. They're saying, Blood of Eden wants Nona to be Harrow. They're also like, why do they want Judith? You know, maybe it does have something to do with the whole Steely thing. Everything comes back to the tomb. Should I read you this heartbreaking conversation between Camilla and Palamedes?
God, I wish I could see your face.
Look in the mirror.
It's not you. It's me wearing you. I keep turning around to find you and there's nobody there.
I know the feeling.
Of course you know. Of course I'm telling you what you already intimately know. And now here I am, installed in your body, mere minutes from chewing up your soul. Camilla, I can't bear this. I'm eating your life.
I've carried you, Warden, and I've carried your memory. I'd rather carry you.
What about Camilla Hecht, the independent entity, free to live her life outside the shadow of her necromancer? I cannot bear the thought of using you.
Love and freedom don't coexist, Warden.
This is all there is to love? Simply by being in your life, I have added indelibly to its weight?
Yes.
Camilla, I mean it.
I meant it too. You used to say it to me.
We are one flesh.
I am your end.
Cam, have you thought about what it means if Nona's actually a completed merger? One we will never actually be able to unpick.
Yes.
And? Thoughts?
Lucky them. The recording goes all funny and garbled, and it switches to a recording of Nona when she was 2 months old. Nona's saying water, salt, mouth, water. Nona looks up. Camilla is standing right there. Nona blushes. Cam has just walked in on her listening to Camilla and Palamedes' private conversations, which she's not supposed to do, and also Nona being a very, very baby. Camilla leaves. Nona twirls the knob on the recorder. Pyrrha could get it to go to stations that had music playing. Pyrrha was teaching Nona how to dance. Every time I read that part, it makes me cry. Even though it's either real wholesome and cute, or it's like Cam would disapprove of this dancing style. Nona wants to be really good to make up for all of that stuff that she just did, so she drinks a whole glass of water and eats half of the thing that they're eating. But Cam barely glances over at her. It's not giving hate, it's giving awkward. Finally, Cam says, we aren't just gonna wait here for Pyrrha, we're gonna go find her. They're gonna go to the spaceport. But first, Nona needs to stop off at the school. Gonna go just quickly make sure everyone's alright. Camilla goes to get dressed. Nona goes to the window and stares directly at the big blue sphere in the sky. Nona whispers to it, do you know where Pyrrha is? And it just makes a sad sound. Nona says, that's alright. Sorry for asking. Don't do anything weird. He puts the blinds back down just as Camilla comes back. Poor Camilla and Palamedes. Period. Ouch after ouch after ouch. But also, like, poor Camilla and Palamedes. They spend all this time with Nona, taking all these notes and doing all this science, and she's doing shit like that with her in the bathroom. At school. Honesty, Kevin, beautiful Ruby. They're all there waiting for Nona. Nona hugs them all. No more school after today. Everyone's kind of on edge. The dynamics are weird. Hot Sauce is being very zombie-phobic as usual. The angel is telling them about how they got to this planet. This seems completely irrelevant to the events of this book, but I have a feeling this is going to be important in the next one, so I am telling it to you now. They were born on a planet called Lemuria?
No, they're not. Nope.
Their job there was they were a zoo director. But the planet started to die. Stuff started mutating. They had to cull all of the animals. Blood of Eden showed up and the 9 houses showed up and they were all fighting. But in the end, the 9 houses won. And they moved everyone to more planets. Now that planet, Lemuria, is just used for mining.
I've connected the 2 dots.
You didn't connect shit, but
I've connected them.
Anyway, next lesson, safety class. The angel rolls out a big roll of paper with a map of the city drawn on it, and they start coloring in pieces of the map where they shouldn't go in red and places that are safe in blue. Nona doesn't really understand maps. When the angel asks, why is this blue place safe? Nona answers like she has been schooled so good by Pyrrha about safety. They keep debriefing until the lights go out. Generator's only gonna last a couple hours, so the angel says, all right, that's it for school. For some reason, Cam is still in the back taking notes and not taking Nona home or to go find Pyrrha, so Nona makes herself useful. She gets those drawings of the animals yesterday and she starts writing everyone's names on the back. And she gives them to the angel. They stop. Nona peeks over and says, oh, that's mine. And the angel stares at Nona and then stares at the drawing. Thanks, Nona. The kids all leave. It's very sad. And they do a little all hands in. That they'll still be a gang. Hot Sauce says, any zombies we unalive, we do it for each other. Hot Sauce goes to turn off the generator. Nona is about to go with her when the angel says, hold on, Nona, can you come here for a second? Cam does something odd. She trips, so she has to catch herself on the angel. Angel says, Nona, can I ask you a question? Cam says, okay, but she doesn't have to answer. That's not Camilla, that's Calamity. Consent gang. The angel shows Nona that picture that Nona drew and says, how did you draw this? Nona says, I made it up, but I promise it works. These are its ears, and this is its nose, and you can't see it, but under here, there's its mouth. The angel looks at Cam and says, I've seen pictures of this animal, but only because I went to special zoologist school and I went to an underground archaeology talk, and that's where I saw a diagram of this animal that Nona drew from her mind. That's a cradle creature. The creature that only existed on Earth and no longer exists. And I'm 99% sure that Nona drew an elephant. We're not going to think about that too hard because Camilla, has a question for the angel. Did you ever have an operation or receive medical care from the 9 houses? Did you ever get some kind of implant? Did you specifically meet any necromancers who gave you any kind of treatment? When Palamides touched them, looking for something medically, I think. I don't know what Palamides was looking for. This is why I think this is going to be important for next book. Palamides just said like 50 things that they are not supposed to say. Pal adds, I'm not going to hurt you. Noodle, who's never made an angry sound, starts to growl at Palamides. The angel looks very, very afraid. The angel takes Noodle into the kitchen, but they pick up their bag. I hope they're not calling anybody about the zombie. The angel lifts the blinds up, and the angel says, why aren't you two affected by the blue madness? Hot Sauce walks in and sees Nona sitting in the puddle of blue light. Nona hears a big sound, and then Nona hears and sees nothing. Her body's not working. She can't see anything. She can't perceive anything. The angel and someone who's their bodyguard are panicking. The bodyguard's like, oh boy, we have fucked this up. You called White Protocol on the Lictor Project. The way this person who's talking is talking, it's a little bit familiar. Nona can see again. She can see that she's in a big puddle of red on the floor, and her head's all sticky and her body's all sticky, and the bodyguard says, I'm going to deadhead these two, Camilla and Nona. I was like, I'm sorry, Pyrrha, I cannot play possum anymore. And she sits up. That person swears a whole bunch more pew pew 2 more times to Nona, but she recovers from the pain much quicker than pew pew from the window. Nona and the very, very bad day at school. Camilla is lying on the floor in her own big puddle of red. And Camilla says, it's fine. Update. Nona looks at the other person, the bodyguard. They have a face that Nona describes as super cool and fierce and handsome. And they have buzzed hair on one side of their head and the hair on the other side is all blue. And Nona knew that this was the lady of our passions, Pash, the minute they moved. Nona's like, it's not the time, but also damn. Pash shot us. Palamides was talking to the angel and someone shot us through the window and now the carpet's gross. So the person that was watching them from The other window was in Merv Wing. They thought that We Suffer was up to some shenanigans because of that time that Nona pretended to call Crown on the radio outside. Any of the combat Blood of Eden stuff I black out for. Merv Wing is coming to unalive them all because the angel called in that there was a lictor there. But then Pash was like, no, that's the lictor we want, actually. The angel aim is important to Blood of Eden for reasons that we'll get into later. So they have a lifeguard squad on them at all times, hence Pash's presence. Hence the armored vehicle. La la la. Pash, We Suffer, didn't know that Nona can regenerate as quickly as she did. They didn't know that Cam could regenerate because they didn't know that Calamities is in Camilla. And they thought like, oh no, Lictor project over. But now they have a problem because there are 10 to 12 very armed people coming inside the building to try and unalive them all. Cam and Pash are all gearing up to fight. They got something in common. They both dual wield. Nona has a type. They locked Hot Sauce in the generator room. Nona runs over to the generator room. Hot Sauce is like lying on the floor in shock because Hot Sauce saw Nona get pew-pewed. And they keep having this conversation. Hot Sauce is like, I made it up. And Nona says, yeah, don't worry about it. We have to stay in this building because there are people here who are attacking us. All the banging and all the shooting and all the crashing stops. So Hot Sauce and Nona, holding hands, go back to the room. Although everything is really destroyed, there's not that much blood. There's just the puddles of blood that Cam and Nona left. Cam's dragging bodies into the closet.
My girl's in the next room. Sometimes I wish she was you.
Nona runs over and hugs Camilla, listening to her heartbeat, and Cam lets her stay there. Hot Sauce is standing over where Nona's big puddle of blood is. Hot Sauce says, I didn't make it up. So Nona grabs Hot Sauce's hand and puts it on her heart and says, see, I'm fine. Hot Sauce presses her gun to Nona's head and says, you're out of the gang. Pew. In the dream, John seems scared to go into the big concrete building. John continues to tell the story. Some guys roll up, some government people, and they say, hey, John, this really important man died. It's not great that this man is dead right now because we are sort of undergoing an extinction event. We need this man alive. Can you pretend that this man is alive? And they won't tell John who this important man is at first. They just tell him how much they're gonna pay him. John's like, all right. In terms of the whole ships that go really fast, they've cleared it. The launch is scheduled, but they aren't showing people any of the plans or specs that would make any further shipbuilding legitimate. John and the gang are like, something's up here. You aren't building any more ships. The trillionaires are just going to leave everybody else. And everyone just says to John, cows have best friends. Government people fly John out to see the body he's supposed to puppet. As soon as they see this person, Mercy and Augustine say, do it. Perhaps the prime minister of a country, John fixes him up. He can puppet the man from far away. But if you want him to do anything complicated, like I'm going to have to be nearby. So how are you going to pay me for that? How are you going to pay me to not tell anybody? That's how John ended up going home with a couple $1 billion and a nuke. Nona, the middle part of the Venn diagram between Barbie and Oppenheimer. Nona's senses are coming back again. She realizes that her ankles and her wrists have been chained to a bed and a radiator. One too many things has happened. Pierre is missing. Camilla got shot. Nona got shot. Hot Sauce shot Nona. And now she's chained up. Nona does not like to be restrained. Nona threw her third tantrum. Nona starts to scream. Nona tugs on her restraints until she makes them come off of her. And everything is getting really slippery. Gets, I think, her feet ones off by making herself smaller. Everything in the room at this point is covered in blood. There's fingers, pieces of Nona everywhere. Door's locked. So Nona just keeps hitting the door until she crashes through the door, making even more mess. She's also wielding one of the chair arms like a weapon. There's a bunch of Blood of Eden soldiers. They're masked up. Nona gets shot again by those Blood of Eden people. That pisses her off even more. Nona starts screaming at these people. Nona's running at this soldier that just shot her, wielding her chair arm, and she says something a little odd. Nona says that that person screamed through their mask, and Nona screamed through her mask, the front of her face. Someone puts a hood over her head, pin her arms down. Feels a bit like being swaddled, and this had been a good move against Nona in the past. Nona's mouth says, "Fool, you're killing her." But she's really just talking to herself. In the dream with John telling the story, John says that none of them wanted to use the nuke. They put it under the floorboards. They just had to keep telling the truth about those ships. Keep telling people that there wasn't any evidence that they were coming back. Keep telling everyone that that wasn't a long-term solution. And yeah, if that didn't work, okay, we have a nuke. John and the gang go to investigate where they're building these ships. And they're like, yeah, they're not building any more ships. And they tell everyone this. And they get called a cult. John goes home and says, okay, we'll be a cult. It only takes some eyeliner and some capes. Join us, live forever kind of deal. Now we are on day 24 hours until the tomb opens. I know I said this in Harrow, but this is crying time. Harrow is a sad book. Nona, emotionally devastating. It took me so long to get to this one and to get through it, just because I was like, I don't know if I can actually handle this book right now. Nona wakes up again. She can't tell if everything has just been a dream, but she wakes up with something warm on her. Something that smells like Camilla. But she's definitely not at home. She's in the meeting room that they had their Blood of Eden meetings in. Pal looks over Nona, makes sure she's going to be okay, and he tells her that hot sauce is gone. Blood of Eden brought them in to see we suffer. Nona says she's sorry. Pal says like, hey girl, that was not your fault. That was their fault. They've never trusted us. And they had locked up Camilla. So Cam Pal could not tell them Nona was going to freak out if they restrained her. Pal's like, also Nona, that broadcast, when you saw it, because I know you saw it, you didn't recognize anyone, did you? Nona says, only the girl from my dreams. Pal closes his eyes, has to take a deep breath. Nona. That's the kind of information that changes everything. Calamity says that if Cam and him didn't love her so much, they'd throttle her and give all her magazines to charity. But Nona doesn't really mind that they'd give all her magazines away because Pal has never said the word love before. Nona says, I have to tell you something. You know how I've been sick lately? Well, I'm not going to be sick much longer. I think I've only got a couple days left. I'm dying. Calamities does his kind of necromancy inspections that he does. He prods her all over. He draws on her. What the hell? Your soul is trying to leave your body. What's happening to you is what would happen to Camilla if I stayed in her too long. Calamities now suspects this is not Harrow Harkononagesmus's soul. They were like, maybe she just can't remember anything and absorbed Gideon fully. Remember, she was lobotomized last time they all saw her. But now, no, her soul is trying to leave her body. That can't be Harrow's soul. So maybe it's Gideon's soul, and Gideon just can't remember anything because of whatever happened. Or this is a combo Gideon Harrow special. Calamities thinks that true lictorhood is the mutual death of both souls to then become something new. Nona's just like, Calamities. It's okay. I don't mind. I don't mind dying. I've been doing it for ages. I'm not afraid. Pal says, no, it's the body of someone I owe a favor to. And I'd really like to see the look on her face when I present it back to her. And if we lose your body, then where would your soul go? If you are one of the people that we think you might be and you die and then she wakes up, if that soul's gone forever, that's going to be like the final straw for that person whose body you are in. Nona hugs Calamities like Cam would. Al says, okay, so the girl on the broadcast, the redhead, that's Gideon Nav. And since that's the other body that you might come from, we need to get you there as fast as we can. Spiritual gravity will do the rest. Cam is now in charge. We Suffer comes into the room. We Suffer refers to everything that's happened as a comedy of errors, and that, yeah, you were the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life. So sorry we locked you up, but you also scared the shit out of everyone here. And now nobody will come in this room and nobody wants to be around you, Nona. So We Suffer gets a radio call. Corona Beth volunteered to go on a BOE mission. Camilla says, oh no, you can't send Corona to do that mission. She's played you, it's over. Suffer's like, no way. This'll be great. Crown's gone to the barracks. The barracks has been taken over by the Tower Prince, Ianthe. Since this planet used to be run by the 9 houses, by the cohort, all of the facility stuff there was still working, so they just remade their home base kind of thing. Coronabeth is wearing these stud earrings that are bugged so they can hear the conversation through the radio. Oh, Jesus. Corona! Ianthe and Corona are very, very happy to see each other, except Corona's like, don't touch me, because Ianthe is inside of Nibirius Turn's dead body, and it's weird to be touched by Nibirius, but as Ianthe, and Ianthe's like, don't worry, baby, it's okay. I love you, I've missed you. You look so good, baby, but also, what the hell? Why are you wearing shitty ass earrings? Studs? They can hear Corona taking someone out of the car. And Ianthe's like, I thought she was dead. Corona says, if you want me, you're gonna have to take Judith too. Judith Deuteros, who, when we played Marry, Kill, Reanimate, you used to say reanimate because nobody would be able to tell the difference. That Judith Deuteros. We Suffer gets on the radio and says, can someone check the basement and see if Judith Deuteros is there? There's a lot more weird stuff between Corona and Ianthe. I don't need to tell you about it. Ianthe's just like, no, just come inside. You and your ugly ass stud earrings. They hear Ianthe's voice get really, really close. Listen, dregs to the Saint of Awe. I'm very pleased you handed my sister back to me. That's why I'm not currently flattening a planet that, I'll be honest with you, nobody really gives a shit about. I'm changing the terms of the demand. I don't particularly care about Blood of Eden. You think we're fighting you on Antioch? I want the 6th house oversight body. I want Camilla Hecht on my front doorstep. Who doesn't? And most of all, I want Harrowhark Nonagesimus.
I want Hermione Granger!
I also hear Corona saying, oh my god. Gideon, the Saint of Duty, says, get the earrings out. I'm taking him to Papa as a gift. Ianthe has started referring to John in parental terms, so she sometimes calls him Papa.
Dear Papa.
Dad. Ianthe and her daddy issues against the world. Inside the meeting room, We Suffer is having the worst day. Pyrrha's betrayed them. Corona's betrayed them. They've lost Judith Deuteros. Everything's bad. Somehow that lictor knows that they have the 6th house, but Nona is all happy. Cam also looks kind of relieved. Pyrrha?
All night, all day.
Not Gideon the Saint of Duty. It's just Pyrrha pretending to be Gideon the Saint of Duty. In the things that Pyrrha was saying, she was communicating to Nona and Cam in code. Because Pyrrha Devey is the hottest person to ever be resurrected. Told them to search the area for active bugs. More bugs than just the earrings. As they're doing that, they're getting on. They're like, get me a transmission, blah, blah, blah. Nona goes to stand with Camilla. Cam wraps her arm around Nona, holding each other against the wall. Cam says, Nona, so you remember that tantrum you had? The way you were holding that chair arm? Great sword fighting stance. 2-handed. We practiced 1-handed. They want her to beat Gideon Nav so bad. Finally, We Suffer gets that frequency. There's another bug. And Palamity says, Nona, update. This is Nona's update, which is actually very helpful. Pyrrha's in the barracks. Crown went in and we heard her over the audio. The other one, Crown's boyfriend, I think, smashed the bug. But there's another bug on the captain, only we can't hear from it yet. Pyrrha's talking funny like she's trying not to sneeze, but she said there's something we need and we have to go get it. But also, Crown's boyfriend said he wants everything, especially Camilla and someone called Harrowhark Nonagesimus, and we have to give it to him by sundown. We Suffer thinks that Camilla is just having a mental breakdown. And Pal says, okay, well, if it makes you feel better, you can just think that, but you can't explain me regenerating or me doing necromancy any other way, so I just need you to listen to me. Calamities and We Suffer come to an agreement. We need to get Gideon Nav's body out of the barracks. You want Gideon Nav's body so that you can get into the tomb. That whole thing with Wake, the threesome plan to get into the tomb, Yui still wants to get into the tomb. Pal says win-win. We need to get Nona to Gideon's body. We will do that if you give us the sixth house back. They're pretty sure that because Ianthe is only puppeting Nibirius, she's not at full lictor strength. We have Pyrrha in there already. We go in there. We can probably do it. Lucifer says, okay, the bug that Pyrrha put on Judith Deuteros is now online, and they can overhear some more weird Ianthe Corona conversation, also starring Pyrrha, who they think is Gideon the Saint of Duty. Ianthe does a little ward on the back of Judith's neck. Camilla figures out the code, and then says, okay, Nona, come here. Also, what the hell, Nona, why are you feverish? And Nona says, oh, I'm dying. Don't worry, I told Palamides. Camilla looks at her with what Pyrrha calls her, I'll talk to your mother later face. Yui has until sundown to deliver Cam and Harrow. Camilla says to Lucifer, okay, can you get me the sixth house by then? I also need you to get me scissors, some eyeball dye, and the blackest clothes you can find. Book of John. John and the person he's telling the story to finally go into the concrete building. There's all of these barricades everywhere, desks and chairs, and there's also a lot of bones. They are not really decomposed yet. Anyway, John says, so the government and everybody else made it clear that they would arrest anybody who joined our cult. But that didn't stop them. They made the cow dome bigger. Don't worry, they didn't unalive any more cows. By that point, God could do bone parthenogenesis. John said, that's not important. I started looking for the soul. That's the final piece, element X. John and the nun have been talking about this a lot because she thinks he can find the soul, but she's like, I don't think you're looking for it in the right way. John decides that in order to find the soul, he has to see more people. So it's really fortunate that a big fight breaks out in front of the cow dome. John did see something, a little soul-like, when they died. When he slurped up the energy from those 5 people, it was like a drug. John took that energy and he unalived everybody with a gun in a 5-kilometer radius. And also people without guns. Okay, everybody in a 5-kilometer radius who wasn't in the bone dome. Stopped their hearts. Very, very easy. Pyrrha started shaking him and said, what the hell? He'd never seen her angry like that, and she was scared. And John said, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. I didn't know what I was doing. I made a mistake. Pyrrha said, guys like you don't make mistakes. But eventually the others talked her down. We took all those corpses inside for the skeleton army. The person John's telling the story to asks, well, did you ever figure out what happened? Why you accidentally unalived all those people? And John smiles at her and says, come on, love. Guys as careful as me don't have accidents. So it's almost time to go do the plan, and Nona doesn't recognize herself. They cut her braids off, shaved her head. She looks like a baby, but less good. They've dressed her in a black shirt and black pants. And she's not supposed to look at Camilla when she's confused or sad. And she has to practice standing very straight and tall and not making any expression that isn't a sad face. Nona is not sure if she wants to be Hero Harkononogesimus at all. Also, Camilla says, remember you're blind. They've dyed her eyes to be really cloudy. Other than hiding her yellow eyes, they're pretty sure that something is being communicated by the resurrection beast through the light. And that thing is what makes the necromancers have the blue madness. So if you can't see, you don't go as crazy. Because everyone is so afraid of Nona now, no other Blood of Eden people would come into the room unless they made a big barricade between Nona and Camilla and everyone else. Pash came in and helped make the barricade. And at this point, Nona has a little crush on Pash. Pash keeps glaring at Nona, which makes Nona giggle. And then she gets told off because Harkononogesimus does not giggle. The plan is Camilla going as Camilla, Nona going as Harrow are just going to go to the barracks. BOE's going to hand them over, but they're going to do something to Ianthe that Palamides and Camilla have worked out to take her out, and then they're going to go get Gideon's body. Camilla tells Harrow, don't answer Ianthe. If she does ask you something really directly, just say no. And if she asks you anything and you really don't know how to answer, act like the captain, like you have blue madness. She says Harrow's main job is the distraction. So Nona says, well, had Harrow Harknona been a distraction? Camilla says, it's always the quiet ones. When you reread the series after reading Nona, the whole first book, and then Ianthe's like kind of trying to pick up Harrow. Calamity is just trying to be friends with Harrow, and the whole time Harrow's just like, I have to win. The politics of that book are crazy if you're in anyone who actually knows what's happening's perspective. But you're stuck in Gideon's POV, who's like, let me find a door today and think of a new nickname for Harrow. They go off to do the plan. Pash is also going because Aim, the angel, wants to go watch. Pash really doesn't want to go on this mission. They don't want to see Gideon Nav's body. Noodle's there too, by the way. Cam gets a bunch of stuff out of the trunk. She brought all of the stuff from the secret cupboard in their apartment, including the sheaths for her double swords, all of Cam's secret knives, and also a pair of sunglasses. Camilla puts on Gideon Nav's sunglasses. What the fuck are those sunglasses made of? They've survived 2 deaths in the river. Okay, Cam and Pash have a little interaction here, and Pash says something to Camilla that I feel like might be important later. Anyhow, Nona and Cam go into the barracks. Pash and the angel are staying in the car with Noodle. I'm just going to call her Ianthe, but remember that Ianthe is in Nibirius Turn's body. Nona is using he, him pronouns to refer to Ianthe because Nona's never met Ianthe and she's just seeing Nibirius. Ianthe, in this room, with Corona on one side of her, Pyrrha on the other. There's a bunch of cohort soldiers behind her, but they are all dead. Ianthe's puppeting them. Ianthe says, Harry, don't you have anything to say for yourself? Nona says no. Well, this isn't turning out how I wanted it to. I thought you and I would share a couple of saucy quips. I thought you'd come in here demanding the body of your cavalier. So they're like, okay, that is why they brought Gideon Nav's body. Great, we thought that was the reason. Nona does not know what the frick's going on, so Nona does not say anything. Ianthe breaks the silence. Has that fire cooled? Have you changed your mind on that one? Is Camilla the better model? I consider Camilla Hecht an obvious upgrade. I imagine she hardly makes one ass joke a day. Ianthe, looking a little impatient, looks at Camilla. Well, Hecht, thank you for coming. I suppose you know why you're here. So remember, the end of the last book, when God was momentarily unalived by Mercy Morn.
The sun is stabilized. Hopefully the 6th didn't get too toasted in that solar flare.
The 6th house was the closest to the sun. The 6th house engaged their mechanism that allows for the whole 6th house to travel through space using, as Camilla tells us, 54 obelisks. I'm not going to pretend that I know how the space travel works. I tried to explain this to Lee and I don't think I was successful. They left at that time. So at first, God and Ianthe just thought that God had destroyed the 6th house with the solar flare. It wasn't until a little bit later that they were like, 6th house is actually missing. God didn't know that the 6th house could move around like that. Ianthe does not want to get all of the 6th house back to God. Ianthe's pissed that the 6th house did that. Ianthe's like, you know what? Just give me those 16 people. I'll unalive them and then we'll take the rest of the 6th house back to the 9 houses for God. I'm going to wield fear. Everyone will be so afraid of me, and they Tridentarius the Saint of Camilla, why the frick are you smiling? The 6th house left because Alecto gave them instructions to do so. Cassiopeia is the one who figured out how to do that and was like, you know what? If this and this and this happens, you guys get out of the 9 houses. I love that John's friends were just constantly betraying him. Ianthe says, this is the last thing we need. If he hears that yet another one of his duplicitous sluts betrayed him, he's never going to come back from it. He's so fragile right now. Not even if we scourge Antioch and fly the first flag from the tallest tower. Corona's like, that sounds so bad, baby. Just come home with me. Ianthe, petting Corona's hair, says, don't be silly. There's no starting over. We're closer to the goal than ever before. The fuck is the goal? I'm I'm so scared of her, but also like I love her.
You're fucking scary, but it's fucking hot. I don't understand.
She gets up. She's grabbed Nona by the front of her shirt.
Harrow's never this quiet.
Nona, afraid, starts to act like Judith. But I feel like Camilla, in her infinite wisdom, may have been too busy with the Palamides planning to clarify to Nona that she did not mean it literally, because Nona starts to scream exactly like Judith Deuteros. But it doesn't sound like it does exactly when Nona hears it. It sounds like Nona just dropped a vocal explosive into this room. The lights are sizzling. Nona plays possum like Pyrrha taught her. When Nona looks up, Ianthe's on one knee, rapier, coated in blood. Pyrrha's down. Cam has her arms pinned by 4 of the guards, and there's some dead guards behind Nona. Ianthe and the cohort were never going to help the people on this planet. Whatever the plan was, now Ianthe's like, frick it, no, I'm just taking my sister, and apparently Judith Deuteros, what the freak, and you, Harrow Hark, Nona Jesimus, and I'm taking you to God. Ianthe looks at Camilla, and she's like, you know what, Camilla, actually, you in the 6th house are kind of superfluous, and I don't need God knowing about the Cassiopeia thing, so I can either unalive you here, or I can take your arms and legs off and unalive you later. Cam says, all right, I accept the challenge of the 3rd. In the first book, when Ianthe challenged the 6th house to a duel for their keys.
Content warning, Ianthe Tridentarius says, I challenge the 6th house for their keys. Gideon is staring at Harrow. If somebody can't duel, someone else can duel in their place. Harrow knows what Gideon wants her to say. The 9th will represent the 6th. Death first to vultures and scavengers.
Camilla never got to decline that challenge, so that challenge is still valid. If I lose, I die. If I win, I walk away. Just me. You can have Harrow. And Ianthe says, what the frick? Well, no. Corona grabs Pyrrha's gun and threatens to herself. Ianthe says, stop being so fucking dramatic. And Corona says, stop being so fucking dramatic.
You're so fucking hot, but shut the fuck up.
Crown's like, I'll do it. Like when we were teens, but this time I'm going to really tie the rope, really drink the poison. Ianthe has this little purple handkerchief that she tucks down her shirt. And she says, okay, Camilla, you get that? You win. Camilla and Ianthe in Nibirius's body fight. They're both very good. Ianthe is a sort of lictor and is fighting as both Nibirius and Ianthe, and she swords Camilla through the gut. But Cam grabs Ianthe's hand and says, match to the 6th. Ianthe says, what the fuck? And then collapses. All the guards around the room also collapse. Corona says, stay with us. Cam's like, I'm trying. The body of Nibirius Turn sits up and says, I'm holding you to that. Cam's not looking at Nibirius Turn. She's like looking everywhere else. They get the sword out. Corona goes to get bandages. And Nibirius says to Camilla, won't you look at me, Camilla Hecht? I died and you carried me. I gambled and you covered my bet. And now I have fought through time and the river and Ianthe the First, fought and bested Ianthe the First, and I hope I never fight her again. Will you not look at me now, Cam, and know me? Cam looks up at Palamides Sextus. Yes, Warden, I will always know you. And they touch foreheads. Ianthe's still in Nibirius. He's just kind of locked her up. Palamides can't do necromancy in Nibirius Turn's body because that wasn't his cavalier. Palamides cannot heal Cam's gut wound. They've bandaged her up, but Cam is struggling. He can still kind of sense things with the psychometry. So he can sense where Gideon's body is because Ianthe, as Nibirius, knew where it was. Nona and Pyrrha leave. We're off to find Gideon Nav's body. Pyrrha's like, hey Nona, are you okay? And Nona says, I don't know, I feel kind of weird. I hope you don't mind being the last one to know that I'm dying. Pyrrha just says, yeah, I know, I expected that. We all got our secrets. The soul longs for the body. And Nona says, you're not sad? Pyrrha's like, well, you're not dying on my watch. They take a turn, and this area of the hallway has blood wards written all over the wall. So it's the entropy field from the first book, which Mercy developed. Thanks for that, Mercy. Because Nona doesn't seem to have a regeneration limit, if she puts herself in there and keeps regenerating, the ward will just run out eventually. They hold Nona's hands there until the field's all used up. Pyrrha's holding Nona, and she holds her until she feels better. Pyrrha says, okay, Nona, you go along, check the doors, and I'm going to get all the blood off the walls because we don't want any of that hurting the body. Nona runs off, starts opening doors. Nothing. And then Nona opens the door to a very plain bedroom. Lying, stretched out on the bed, is the girl from the dream. Nona tiptoes in and looks at her. She's got this nose that's the complete opposite of Nona's nose. She's got too much mouth. I don't know, she's got a dimple. Nona's like, it's gonna be really tough to go from being as beautiful as I am to being a redhead. She puts her hand on her because she's like getting really close, and she expects that she might just pop out of existence and suddenly be in the body. But that doesn't happen. But what does happen is that the corpse opens its eyes. Nona sees her eyes. They're a bit cloudy because she's dead, but like, damn, she got something going for her. The corpse is looking at Nona with this look. And Nona's like, this I'm good at. Nona just leans down and kisses Gideon. The body of Harrow Hark Nona Jessamith. The mouth does not respond to Nona's kiss, but Nona can feel the whole body shiver. Nona pulls back. The dead body is looking at Nona in shock, in disbelief. Nona just says defensively, you looked like you wanted to be kissed.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
The implications. Pyrrha appears in the entryway, and Nona says, sorry, Pyrrha, I messed it up. Pyrrha's not looking at Nona. Pyrrha's staring at Gideon. Pyrrha wants to mother that girl so bad. Nona's like, hey, don't say anything because she can hear you. She's awake. And Pyrrha says, what? She's touching Gideon. She's like, no, Nona, she's dead. Nona says, no, I know she's awake because I kissed her. Pyrrha just looks sad, but a little amused. Pyrrha's like, okay, whatever, but you're not dead. So I guess we can rule out pneumatic inversion. That would have been what would have happened if Nona's soul instantly went from her body into Gideon's body, and then Harrow's body would have. Pyrrha picks up Gideon, throws her over her shoulder. Nona is staring at Gideon. She like keeps poking her. Pyrrha grumbles something about like, why the hell is John dressing them up as though they are the military wing of disco? They get back to where everyone else was, and they see Corona first. And Corona says, oh my god, they do have Gideon Nav's body. This is the important thing that Corona and Cam lost during that incident that happened when they picked up Harrow. Blood of Eden had Gideon's body, and it wouldn't decompose. They kept trying to get it to decompose. Nothing would happen to it. So they were just kind of taking it around. But then in that kerfuffle, they lost it. That's how God got Gideon's body from the last time we saw it at Canaan House. When Palamedes sees Nona and Gideon, he looks kind of confused. And he says, what? No reaction? Pyrrha says, no. Nona even gave it mouth to mouth. Nona's like, Pyrrha, that was private. Hal says, all right, so it's just a copy, right? Like that can't be Gideon's body. Pyrrha very gently puts it down, and they all look at her. The body has all of the wounds that Gideon Nav had. So we got I gotta talk about this. We recall Gideon threw herself on a fence. Gideon has a hole here and a very large chest wound. Nona describes things in a very Nona way. When Nona had her hands through the force field, she describes her own bones as soft, ferny sprouts. Nona describes this chest wound as having little teeth poking out of it. I personally am of the opinion that these are Gideon's ribs, and Nona is just describing the wound in the way Nona describes everything. There is so much discourse about the chussie. There's so much fan art where that thing has teeth and tongue. I get it because we remember the holes to hell at the bottom of the river with the tongues and the eyeballs with the teeth and the tongues. But I am of the opinion that that's just her ribs and it's just a normal wound. But I guess that's something we'll find out if the next book ever comes out. Pal says, hey, oh, wait, hold on. I got an advantage here because I touched her when she was alive, so I can do psychometry. They're not too sure what's happened because we know Gideon's body does not decompose. God wouldn't need to preserve her in the way that he preserved, like, Kitharea's body that Wake was in on the Mithraeum. But God's done something to her so that you can't see anything on Gideon. There's no fingerprints left. Palamity said, okay, well, maybe this is what's keeping Nona out. Also, they cannot use the shuttle that they were planning to use, so they have a new plan. Cam and Pal, they have 50 million plans. We get to the 6th and we can use their installation. Hopefully that will lure the resurrection beast away from this planet. It'll let these people get some things sorted out, and then we can fix Nona. We go to the 9 houses and then we start the real fight. Easy peasy. First step, Cam, pass me that syringe. I'm gonna get some of Gideon's blood out in case we need it. He cuts a piece of Gideon's pant off. That's when one of her hands shoots out and grabs his wrist. Nona notices that there's a bracelet on that wrist. A bracelet braided from a bunch of different colors of string. 1, that's not going to work. 2, I fucking hate needles. 3, sex pal. If that's how you get a lady's pants off, holy shit, no wonder I stole your girl.
It's Brittany, bitch. And I am back.
Pierre says, no, this can't be possible because what your girl had done with your soul, like, you shouldn't be able to do this. She hadn't managed to fully separate, and he didn't bring you, like, he didn't fix you, he didn't make you alive. I'm Prince Kiriona Gaia I, Her Divine Highness, First Lieutenant of the Cohort, Emperor's Lifeguards, non-auxiliary, honorary title, but who cares? Heir to the Emperor Divine, first of the Tower Princes, and I'm mega dead.
No one has made this dramatic of a change yet. No one has made, in my generation, this extreme of a switch.
Gideon gets up and says, okay, who've we got? Corona, looking great, ma'am, may I say. Cam, though probably not for long by the looks of it. Mumfucker Prime, Judith Deuteros for some reason, and Sex Pal. Oh, and this fake Nona Jesimus over here. Everyone but Corona can leave. This is so hard to read, but also it's like, yeah, Gideon is an asshole. If you're not in Gideon's brain when Gideon's narrating, she's an asshole. There's like 1% where she's being genuine. Every time that there's any kind of feeling involved in anything, she's just like, no. I think they're just used to it, and that's why they just go along with it in this one. Nona says, I knew it. I saw your eyes. Gideon is not super happy about whoever is inside of Herohark Nona Josimus.
You're still a traitor.
Gideon's very curt whenever Nona speaks. Nona does not like that. She really does not like Gideon. Palamides will not say he doesn't understand, but Palamides will say, this isn't making as much sense as I would like it to. Gideon can travel in the river, which she should not be able to do. If Gideon's a revenant, her soul should separate from her body when she goes in the river because her body's dead. Gideon says, I just can. And also, you haven't been in the river recently, have you? Because some things are different. Anyway, you guys are going to the 9th house, right? Great, because I want to come. Everyone says, what? Palamides very handily points out, hey, you introduced yourself as Prince Kiriona Gaia. Shouldn't you be trying to stop us? Gideon just looks at him. You want to fight me, Sextus? Palamides just says, no, I just want to know what you want. And Gideon says nothing. I don't really want anything. I don't really care about anything anymore.
I was a bad girl. I did some bad things.
This is a very last minute editorial note to say I'm sorry about the JoJo Siwa edits. I committed to these pre-June 1st. I could literally unalive all of you and it wouldn't matter at all.
I am a fucking psychopath.
Nona says she's lying. Gideon says, I thought I told you to shut your stolen mouth. The worst situationship in the history of situationships, and it's only going to get worse. Gideon says, okay, take some of my blood, see what happens. They can't do it. The needle just breaks. It breaks so aggressively that Cam falls backwards, and Gideon puts her hand on Cam's shoulder as if to steady her. And then Gideon flinches, pushes Camilla down. Poor injured Camilla. Gideon. Gideon says something fucking wild. My father has made my bones denser than titanium plex. My father has made my skin turn away bullets. I am the perfect sword hand and the final expression of the art of the 9 houses. Don't you get it? I am the Emperor's construct. You really need to take me with you to the 9th house if you want to get in the tomb. They say, okay, well, Blood of Eden's not going to let you just walk in there. Gideon says, no, I will just pretend to be dead. I think now is a good time. I'm pretty sure that Gideon can't die like before when she was alive. I think that Gideon auto regenerates like when Hera walked through the entropy field and Gideon died and then Gideon woke up. I think Gideon actually died and then just regenerated. Similarly, why all of the times on the 9th house when it was situations where she should have died, I think she's slightly unkillable, except for the way she died and then got electrified by Hera. I struggle to understand why more of the characters aren't trying to figure out who Nona is, because Gideon is in Gideon. Pyrrha kind of knows. I don't know, Cam and Pal are too busy. It seems to me like no one's talking about that enough, but I guess they have bigger things to do. They have a plan. I'm trying to get this all done today because I'm leaving and I'm going to have to move the plants. Merv Wing has the 6th house currently. They're being kept underground. Moved from place to place by van. Does this sound familiar a little bit, perhaps? Nona, hearing this, is like, oh, you guys are talking about the convoy. The van full of eyeless people. That's the 6th house. They drive over to Honesty's apartment. Honesty says, Nona, I cannot talk to you because Hot Sauce says you're a zombie. Nona says, yeah. Where did you see the convoy? I'll go away forever if you tell me. I am actually going to go away anyway because I'm dying. When I die, you can have all of the coins in my piggy bank in my house. And also in my desk, I have this rag. It's all turpentine and you can probably sell it for drugs. Honesty opens the door. Hot Sauce is standing there. Honesty's saying to her, I don't care. This girl, Nona, that's my friend. She thinks of my business. But Nona is just staring at Hot Sauce. And Hot Sauce is just staring at Nona. Nona and Hot Sauce have that big map that the angel drew out. Honesty shows Nona where the convoy was, but Hot Sauce says she's not going to remember that. Can you write it down for someone else? Nona says, Hot Sauce, why are you called Hot Sauce? Everyone's been telling Nona that it's some really important reason. And Hot Sauce says, because I like it. You can put it on anything. Nona hugs Hot Sauce and says, forgive me, so I can know what forgiveness feels like. Hot Sauce says, I will always love you, Nona. They get back in the truck. We Suffer says, you know what? We are doing Operation Lock and Key now. We can actually just go and take out Merv Wing to get the 6th house. It's fine. Pyrrha says, this is not what Wake would have done. Pash gets really mad. Ever since Pash has been maskless, every time that she pops up, Pyrrha kind of looks at her funny. Pyrrha says, you know she had your photo on her. You were 9, maybe 10, holding a really giant gun. At this point, Pash no longer looks mad. Nona says that Pash looks like she's having a religious experience. I asked her if you were a nice kid, and she said, no, she's my flesh and blood. She takes after me. And after that, I thought about you for a long time. Pash is Wake's niece. Pash and Gideon are cousins. The layers? What do you mean the body of Harrowhark Nona Jesimis's heart throbbed romantically when she saw Pash? Pash says, why would any of that matter to you? Never mind. F you. Puts her helmet on. Oh, the family resemblance. The truck starts getting pelted by something. Pyrrha gets up, peeks out. Pyrrha always looks sweet and slouchy, and is the least afraid person in any room, even if that room contains Camilla Hecht. But now, Pyrrha looks terrified. Heralds are attacking the planet. Nona makes her body stand up on 2 feet, the worst amount of feet. She stands in front of Corona, holds out her hand for the sword. When Corona doesn't give it to her, Nona takes Corona's sword. Pash has their gun on Nona. Palamides is saying, hey Nona, what's going on? Nona, talk to me, Nona. Nona's at the truck opening, trying to get out, but she can't get out without having 2 hands. So she sheaths the sword, except Nona does not have a sword sheath. So Nona sheaths the sword in her hip. Nona climbs up on top of the truck. Nona looks up at the sky and yells, "You said you wouldn't do anything weird." Nona unsheathes her sword from herself, kind of brandishes it at the sky. Nona hears someone standing on the truck behind her. Judith says,
all for nothing. You asked for help. You asked, and all for nothing. Only pain. You asked. I gave you blood for blood.
Not like this. I love this place.
Do you love?
I don't know what it means. I say it and I don't know what it means. Did I ever know what it meant?
Green and breathing thing, big ghost, the drinker, transformed. What will you eat now? Where will your body go? What did he do to you to make you this way?
She rooted around wildly to find a phrase and fell back on Cam. You're acting out. Maybe you should take 5.
For 8,000 unjust bodies I will stop.
No, I want you to stop now.
They concoct their own vengeance. Their justice is not my justice. Their water is not my water. I came to help. The danger is upon you, and you do not even know. They are coming out of their tower, salt thing. There is a hole at the bottom of their tower. I will pull their teeth. I will make it black for you.
Nona leaps back on top of the captain, like holds her down. Just wait. Just help me. Help me do this. I might be different soon. The heralds are thinning out. The sky's clearing. The resurrection beast is no longer attacking them. Captain Judith Deuteros looks at Nona and says, Harrowhark? Nona looks up at the sky. No. And I never was. In the dream, they're going through all these corridors in the research facility. More bodies, more parts of bodies. Icky. John says there was a conference happening about the space ships. John, cult leader, was not allowed to go to the conference, but that man that he's puppeting, that man was allowed to go to the conference. John says this was our last chance to tell the government, but we never should have done that. Suddenly, those ships weren't launching in a month. Those ships were launching in 48 hours. John's friend said, John, can't you do something? I mean, the wizard, puppet, dead people stuff's cool, but can't you freeze the glaciers? Do something useful. John still has not figured out the soul thing. He could even kind of see it when someone died, but he can't pick it out. So he says, I can't do it. We have to do something else to stall them. That's when John and his friends all look down at the floor. And John says, we don't want to nuke anybody, but having a nuke adds some pressure. They went to the people who gave them the nuke and said, okay, well, if you don't want everyone else to know that you gave us a nuke, you better not let those damn ships leave. Those people said, okay, just give us the nuke back. Gideon took the nuke over to give it back. Before Gideon left, he said, hey, Gideon, can you come in the basement? And he took Gideon's arm off. He grew him a new arm right away. He said it didn't even hurt. And oh, yeah, Gideon's arm's probably around here somewhere. I gotta find it. I got plans for that arm. There's a lot of panic happening. It's 48 hours until essentially everybody left on Earth is screwed. Cassiopeia and Nigella admit that they're dating. John says, hey, we have a nun. Why don't you guys get married? It's fine. I made them a little bouquet. Yeah, there was teeth growing out of all the flowers. Yeah, they had to get married under like the darkness of the cow shield, but it was lovely. They laughed.
You know why tonight's fun? Because everyone's so gay.
Gideon lands in Australia. That's when John tells the group that nuke is armed. Everyone lost their minds. He says, you don't think that they weren't just going to shoot Gideon? Please, at least this way we go out on our terms. And then they were mad that nuke was going to go off and unalive a bunch of people. And I said, guys, it's fine. They're Australian.
Oh, no.
John also tells the contact, and they said,
No,
We're somewhere else. You wouldn't even be hurting us. Please. Think logically, dude. Just turn off the nuke and then we'll talk about those ships. And John said, you remember that guy you asked me to puppet who still has access to your nuclear codes?
Oh no.
His finger's on the button. You have 30 minutes to tell them to not open the gates for those ships. At this point in John's cult, everybody's yelling at him. John says, don't worry, guys. This is going to work. This is how we save the world. Cassiopeia said something really rude. She said, you care less about being a savior than punishing people. You're vindictive, John. And John said, rude. Cassiopeia, I was just your best man. While John and his gang are fighting, they get a message that there is a SWAT team outside the dome ready to take them down. But John and the gang are nothing if not efficient, so they start preparing as they yell at each other. They're making barricades out of all the furniture. John says, you know, I could have just unalived the SWAT team, but I was trying to win an argument that I don't solve all my problems with murder. So, the skeleton army became a reality. And I sent out the skeleton army to try and get the hostages back, but that didn't work. We got some of them inside and then they also attacked us. I said, next cult, let's go for teenage girls instead. Write that down somewhere. John's cult of teenage girls is a hierarch known as Jessimus. I locked myself in my bedroom with Ulysses and Titania. Then the nun knocked on the door and she said, John, did you find the soul? And I said, I can't. It's too big and I don't know where to look. She said, hey, John, I think I have it. Can you let me in? And the nun had Pyrrha's gun. Says, John, don't misunderstand this. I believe in you and I believe you can save the planet. John could see her soul. He knew why it was so hard to see people's souls. Because person that John is telling this story to, I touched you. You were the noise that was everywhere. And you were so huge and big and complicated and screaming. And you wouldn't stop screaming. You were scared and you were so mad. John has discovered the soul of the earth. John walks through the research facility and sees all his friends get unalived. And he stopped Gideon's heart. This is how it has to go. John says he wanted to stop the earth from screaming. He reached out and it hurt the earth and it also hurt John. I'm sorry that it started in Melbourne.
Oh no.
I set off the suitcase nuke that they gave us and then I did press the buttons.
No.
With the man, and then that set off those ones, which then, that's the thing about nuclear weapons, you know, domino effect.
No.
All of the nukes went off. And John says, yeah, that really hurt you. I'm sorry about that. I tried to get everybody before the nukes did because I didn't want to hurt them. Just drank in all of those souls. But it wasn't enough. I needed to take out those ships. They were up already. So I, took your soul. John gets on his knees and starts putting a bunch of dirt in his mouth. I'm sorry I'm switching between being John and just summarizing John for you. He's trying to incorporate as much as he can, but he says that's the hardest part. It always is. The incorporation without destruction. The Earth's soul was so big that John couldn't put it all in him. He needed to build a house for it. He made her body from the dirt and his blood and bone, and he wanted to make the earth the most beautiful body that John could think of. But he was stressed, okay? When I was 7, you know, all Nana had to play with in her house was some of Mom's old toys, and my favorite out of all of them, my favorite was her old Hollywood hair Barbie.
Hollywood hair.
I loved her little gold outfit.
Stars from here to there.
And her long yellow hair.
Hollywood hair, Barbie.
She was the best. She got to have all the adventures. I conjured up a beautiful labyrinth to house you in. I was terrified you'd find some way to escape before I was done. I made you look like a Christmas tree fairy. I made you look like a Renaissance angel. I made you Adam and Eve, Galatea, Barbie, Frankenstein's monster with long yellow hair. As the world went up, I remade us both. I hid me in you. I hid you in me, and we were together. I became God. But that wasn't enough for John to just be God, because those ships had sailed. So God extends himself through space. He ate the sun first. He destroyed each of those planets, and he held one of those ships. But they escaped. That's it. That's the story. That's what I did. Do you remember what you said to me once I had done it, when we stood here together? She looked at him and said, yes. He said, you said I picked you to change. This is how you repay me? She said, what else did I say? He said, you said, what have you done to me? I am a hideousness. She said, what else did I say? He said, where did you put the people? Where did they go? She said, I still love you. He said, you said that too.
God took those 9 planets, all of that lethargy, and instantly converted it into therapy. And that caused an immediate expulsion of those 9 planets' souls that they call resurrection beasts. 9 eldritch terrors in the 10,000 years that we have been trying. We've unlocked 5, so there are 3 left. And Hera's doing math in her head, and she's like, that doesn't equal 9. God, what did you bury in the tomb? And God says, a monster. The body looks at Hera. Then God reads her a poem. He reads her the Annabelle Lee poem. Ael, who was God's bodyguard. Who was Ael? Ael was the first thing that God made after he remade all of the planets. She wasn't a normal human. She got really angry. The new lictors found out the price, and they wanted him to unalive the saltwater creature before she could do them harm. But it is a tragedy to be put in a box and laid to rest for all time. It happened to me, but I was only a man. It's coming for you, Reverend daughter, and once it's got you, once that rock's rolled away, once that tomb's levered open, the Emperor of the 9 Houses will never know peace again. So then we started thinking, okay, well, what if God unalived Ael, Annabelle Lee, Alecto? Because he didn't actually want us to know where his power came from. And Ael, the monster, we all hated her. Gideon the Singer Duty says, I didn't hate her. Shut up, Gideon the Singer Duty. She could never lie. God told the lictors that he unalived her, but God's a big fat liar, and he just switched her off. God has Alecto's eyes. God's creepy black eyes with the white rings, they weren't around when God first made Alecto. They've always seen God and Alecto after they did the true lictorhood process. When she had first sat by the tomb in shivering awe, she had fancied that the body's ice-ridden fingers had shifted for hers, minutely.
Okay, Nona. Oh, wow. Nona, who is definitely not Gideon and is definitely not Hera, wakes up, and for a minute she's panicking because it's dark and she's alone and she can hear things and she doesn't know where she is. And a voice says, chill. Nona is not alone in the truck. Prince Kirionagaya, aka Gideon, laying on the seats, staring at her with those golden eyes, and they stare at each other until Gideon says, where is she? Come on, where is she? Where'd she go? Nona just is so fed up with this. People always asking her this shit. She says, I don't know what you're talking about. The corpse prince said, okay, different question. Do you love her? Is this the time, Gideon? Does Gideon know who's in Hera? You'd think she would, because out of everybody, her and Pyrrha are the ones who could put it together.
The last thing that Gideon sees is this beautiful woman with yellow eyes and long frosty golden hair. Fuck, it's Hera's bullshit girlfriend. After all of this, in my last moments, Hera's ice lolly bimbo freezer tomb girlfriend comes to get me.
But then I'm thinking about the events of Gideon the Ninth, and I'm like, has Gideon put it together? Pyrrha comes in and says, Ninth, take a walk. I'm pretending to be dead, actually. Gideon is in her sassy teenager phase for the rest of her life. Bad girl. Nona cannot move her legs. Something's wrong. Pyrrha scoops Nona up and they sit down together. Pyrrha says, do you remember what happened? And Nona says, no. Maybe that's for the best. Don't, says Nona. Don't call me that or anything like that. Don't make me remember. Pyrrha says, hey, no, don't freak out. It's okay. And Nona can feel something on the back of her neck. They did that same ghost ward that they did on Judith. Pyrrha goes to take Nona's hand, and Nona says,
did you think this was fun, Pyrrha Dve? Did you think this was lovely? Family blood together, kiss, kiss, a child's game. You said nice words, and everyone pretends they are words you say. Here's a house, we live in it. Worms slithering over each other. Did you like playing pretend? Did you like being a mother and father? You should have given into your desires and eaten us. Chew and swallow. More natural would have respected you for it.
Can we go back to talking about dogs?
Woof, 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 woof. Woof, 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 woof. Woof, 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 woof. Woof, 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 woof. Woof, 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 woof. Woof, 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 woof.
Nona curls up on herself and she feels so bad. Agonies of embarrassment. Pyrrha lets her cry until she's cried out. Nona says, yeah, can I have a tissue, please? Pyrrha doesn't have any tissues for Nona. She only carries snacks. Cam and Powell will have tissues, though. Wait a second. They're with the 6th. The mission was successful. Remember, we were picking up the 6th house. They got him. But something hasn't gone quite right. So Pyrrha carries her over to where everyone is. All of the necromancers had to blind themselves so that they wouldn't go super cuckoo bananas. Calamities is saying, can someone please stop my mom from talking to Blood of Eden? She's going to get shot. Oh, hey, Nona. Hi. How are you? Cam, although she has her clipboard, is not looking good. They can't heal Camilla. None of those necromancers can do necromancy because of the blue madness. And also, the ship doesn't work. They only have these trucks. For some reason, despite everything sounding like we are going to die on this planet, Powell is looking really smiley. Okay. Pal says, put everyone back in the trucks. We are going to take the trucks and we are going to drive them into the river. Back to the 9 houses. Pyrrha says, Calamities, you literally can't do this. As soon as you go in the river, you're not Alector. The ghosts, the hundreds of hungry ghosts, they're going to eat you. Calamity says, nope. Don't worry. Don't worry. Don't worry. Pyrrha puts Nona down on the back of the truck. Nona does not like that because she does not want to sit next to Gideon. But Pyrrha's a bit occupied with kneeling down in front of Cam's wheelchair. She's just like all despair. Pyrrha says, you guys can't do this. This part of the book always makes me feel physically sick. Oh my... Okay. Pyrrha tells Calamities and Camilla that she loves them and to not do this. It's not love what you're about to do. It's a mistake. Pyrrha thinks that Calamities and Camilla are about to do the lictorhood thing. Calamities takes Pyrrha's hand and says, Pyrrha, whatever you think we're doing, we're not doing that. It's going to be okay. Pyrrha says, well, whatever you think you're doing, don't do it. Camilla says, just watch us. Pyrrha kisses Cam, and then Pyrrha kisses Calamities too. There's a semicircle of people from the 6th house, including Calamities' mother and Camilla's sister Kiki, around Pal and Cam. Camilla takes out a knife. Nona tries to get to them, but her legs aren't working. Pyrrha has to catch her, and they both just sink to the ground together and watch. Gideon is looking at the side of the truck. Like, she won't look at whatever Camilla and Calamities are doing. Calamities said, Camilla, we did it right, didn't we? We had something very nearly perfect. The perfect friendship. The perfect love. I can't imagine reaching the end of this life and having regrets. Camilla Hecht bursts into tears. Camilla says, I'm crying because I'm relieved. Will she know who we are in the river? Oh, she's not stupid, said Calamities lightly. In the river, beyond the river, I truly believe we will see ourselves and each other as we really are. And I want them to see us. Tell me no, and we'll go on as we have been. And we'll go on unafraid. But say yes, and we will make this end and this beginning together. Yes, she said. My whole life, yes. Life is too short, and love is too long. He demanded, tell me how to do it, and I'll do it. Camilla said, go loud.
Calamity says, Camilla, go loud, and Camilla explodes. Not actually, like in sword fighting.
Remember the Calamity's bone that Camilla had? That is what's hidden in the handle of the knife. Calamities opens it up and Camilla eats it. Calamities pricks Camilla's finger and he has her put that in her mouth too. Calamity says, don't look back. Put their damn heads on each other's shoulders until Camilla Hecht bursts into flame. Actually. Woof, 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 woof. I can't talk about this. Camilla burns. Nona thinks that this is so horrible to watch that you could die from watching it. Nibirius Stern's body went limp as soon as this started. Eventually, the flames die, and all that's left is this figure, naked and kind of curled up fetus style on the ground. We suffer. Takes off her coat and Kiki takes off her pants. But Nona noticed that Gideon had unbuttoned her jacket, like she was gonna give it to this person on the ground. and it's just Camilla with no hair. Camilla with no bob? It's Camilla, but they're different colored eyes and they're different expressions on the face, and it's not Camilla and it's not Palamides. It hits Nona all at once that they're gone.
Palamides thinks that true lictorhood is the mutual death of both souls to then become something new.
And they're no longer there.
These two people are Palamides Sextus, necromancer of the 6th house, and Camilla Hecht, cavalier of the 6th house. Camilla has a hell of a bob. Palamides is kind of built like that guy from Atlantis. They're the smart ones, doctor things.
And Palamides and Camilla are ride or die for each other.
Camilla, badass that she is, fights with 2 swords. She dual wields. Palamides says, Camilla,
go loud. And Camilla explodes.
Camilla destroys Marta. Palamides and Camilla, the smart, emotionally intelligent ones,
for the most part.
Palamides says, I'd probably help her bury the body.
And Palamides says, I never would have done that to Camilla.
Tell Camilla. Oh, never mind. She knows what to do.
Palamides explodes.
Palamides is gone, which Camilla already knows. He wanted me to tell you. He wanted to tell you that he loved you. Camilla was like, what are you talking about? That is not what he told you.
Their relationship transcends love.
Camilla chimes in to say, guys, I'll be the distraction. They both say, no, Camilla. Camilla's staring at the bone wall, pretending she's not there.
A woman with a gray robe, dark eyes, 2 swords, a bag full of energy, and a hell of a bob. It's Camilla Hecht!
Shocked, which is a weird expression for Camilla.
A piece of skull. Male, early 20s. And that skull has been put back together, not by necromancy. Teeny tiny pieces hand by hand with glue.
He did something necromantically to stick his soul to his body. In case this happened, we planned for it.
The necromancer's marriage season.
Harrow turns to see a man, tall, gray robes, gray eyes.
Long time no see, Reverend daughter.
Palamides Sextus hugs Harrow so hard that he lifts her up.
Palamides is frightened for the moment.
Is Camilla okay? He said a little unsteadily. Thank God for that mad, stubborn, lovely girl. How did you and Camilla even get separated? She wouldn't have left your side if you'd given her half a chance. You became a lictor.
Tell me you did it right.
You, out of everyone, could have figured out the end to the beginning that I was just beginning to understand. Palamides needs to know what part Camilla has so that he can strengthen that little thread and hopefully follow that down to then inhabit the object and
do whatever the thing is that they're trying to do.
Palamides turns to Harrow, grinning, smooches her on the forehead. Nona lives with 3 people, and at night, Nona looks into the eyes of the person who takes care of her, the one with a hell of a bob and gray eyes. And she feels like she's always liked them. He kissed her hand and said, give this to Camilla. When Camilla came back to her body, Nona said this was from Palamides. And she kissed Camilla's hand exactly how Palamides had kissed her hand. And Camilla stared at her, and then had to go sit in the bathtub in the dark for a very long time. Cam says, I don't need to. I already know what Palamides thinks is sexy. Strong work effort, high test scores. Palamides says, those little outfits that nurses wear. Cam, have you thought about what it means if Nona's actually a completed merger? One we will never actually be able to unpick. Yes. And thoughts?
Lucky them. Nona starts to cry. So did I. Those codependent cousin motherfuckers. You had to become one person. The new person goes over to Nibirius and takes something off their body. They stop in front of Nona and they hold out that fancy purple handkerchief. We know there won't be a birthday anymore, but happy birthday, Nona. Nona says, thank you. It's good you didn't get hair ties. Nibirius's body sits up and they look at Palamides Camilla, new person. Palamides Camilla, new person, says, come with us. There's still time for you and there's still time for Nibirius. Yanthe just says, I bet you say that to all the boys. And then collapses. I don't know why Palamides and Camilla didn't say goodbye to Nona. Really bugs me. I think it's because they knew it would have made her upset, but it just makes me really sad that she didn't get to say goodbye to them. Because they're gone. It's totally fine. Palamides Camilla goes around touching everybody and saying things like, oh, hey, fixed your kidneys. Everybody's going in the trucks. We're going in the river. The angel, Aim, pops up with Noodle. So the angel's going with them, because they have to get the angel off the planet. The angel explains who they are here, and this better be explained in the next book. They say, I am the messenger. We are the messenger. The message has 2 parts. The name for this part of the message was Aim. When it was passed through my forebear Emerson, the message is too simple for human beings like us to understand. What do you think the message is? Gideon's already lying down in the truck, still kind of pretending that she's not alive. Pyrrha says, hi kid, to Gideon, and Gideon doesn't say anything. She has not said anything since Cam and Pal left. When Nona first saw Gideon, she said she looked like the saddest girl in the whole world. And Nona didn't understand why everyone else couldn't see how sad Gideon was. Woof, 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 woof. Camilla Palamides says, I'll drive. Paul We're gonna use they them pronouns for Paul. I'm trying to not be mad at Paul. It's fine, but it hurts. And honestly, yeah. Tamsin, you did that. Made me feel so many conflicting, messy emotions about this. That's how these bitches feel watching Paul do this. Because, like, I love Camilla and Palamedes, and I'm happy they're happy, but also fuck love. Because it did this to them. It's awful. It's also good for them. Paul starts the truck.
Seatbelts, everyone!
And they go into the river. John on the beach is writing in the sand. J and E in a little heart. He crosses out the E and puts an A instead. And then he turns that A into an H. Harrow Hark Nonagesimus asks, okay, so after this, you resurrect them. God says, yeah, I did have to wipe their memories because that would have been really complicated to explain all of this. As you know, Harrow, forgetting is the easiest thing in the world. Does it matter if there's inconsistencies in my story? Those people who did this to you are still out there and there can't be forgiveness. Harrow Hark Nonagesimus, even after hearing about the Great Resurrection, has a lot of questions. Harrow Hark Nonagesimus is Harrow Hark Nonagesimusing. Harrow wants to find God. I'm gonna British this. I am the reverend daughter. I am the reverend mother, the reverend father. I must find God. Even if she lies right now within the tomb. God does say, God is a dream, Harrow. You all dream me together, and she's dreaming me too. In a way, her dead dreams of God mean more than all your dreams put together. In this dream of yours, where will you seek out God? Harrow Hark Nonagesimus stands up and sees a big giant tower in the center of the river, and then walks into the river. Every time the river comes up, I lose a brain cell. In the river, Nona wakes up. Something has gone wrong, and they aren't doing the river travel super well. So Nona makes her body get up, taps them on the shoulder, and says, I'll take it from here. Don't ask me questions. Paul gets up and lets Nona take over the driving, and Nona's too short to reach the accelerator, so Paul gets down on the ground to press the accelerator for Nona. As they're driving through the river, Pyrrha looks out the window and says, what the fuck is that? Pointing at the giant tower in the river. Gideon says, told you. Judith is awake and talking to Nona again, and Nona's talking back. Paul and Pyrrha get out of the way because of this weird conversation that they're having. Judith is calling the tower the hole. That tower really scares Nona. Bad vibes. Nona's having a heart attack. Paul says to her, can you get us to the 9th house? Nona says, yeah, but maybe we shouldn't.
Do you guys ever think about dying?
Nona does not want to go back to who she is. She would like to die as Nona. Paul looks at Nona, increasingly afraid, and says, Nona, Noodle's in the back. Nona grabs the wheel. Paul hits the accelerator. Nona's not letting Noodle die in the river. Get out of the river. They're in the middle of the 9th house. They're on the shuttle field. Full circle moment. Everyone in the truck's okay, don't worry, but the people in the back, so Aim, Noodle, Corona, Judith, they're staying in there. Gideon is off. She's gone. She's like, all right, guys, keep up if you want. If not, whatever, I don't care. Nona has to get carried out of the vehicle by Pyrrha. Nona has started being able to sense things, and she can sense something squirming around in the dark. Things that she's seen before once, and she didn't want to see them ever again. It's oddly quiet, even for the 9th house. It's really dark. The generator, the lights, nothing's working. They come across Gideon. Gideon's standing there wiping blood off her sword. And there's 6 or 7 bodies around her, and an old man in a puddle of blood. The old man looks at Nona and says, my lady, you have come home to us at last. Crux is back, everyone's favorite man. Gideon says, hey, don't touch that man, because he's gonna end up like this. And she flips over one of the dead people. Remember that time in the basement at Canaan House when Colum got creepy possessed and his eyeballs turned into mouths with tongues and his body started moving really creepy?
Never makes it back to his body. Something else does. Very creepily starts using his body to attack them in a way that humans shouldn't be able to move.
That's what these people look like. Everyone's favorite. Things are happening. Gideon sounds a bit panicked and she's saying those should not be here. John told us that they are only on Antioch. So this is what Anthe and Gideon have been dealing with on Antioch. Creepy tongue, eyeball, demon zombies that they call devils. And now they're on the 9th house. As Gideon's telling them all this, Crux starts cussing out Gideon. He's like got no other hobbies. Crux takes them to where the last people who are still alive on the 9th house are. They get off the elevator. Pyrrha says, Nav, take point. I'll take the rear. Nona laughed out loud at Pyrrha's accidental ass joke. And when Nona laughs, Gideon looks at her with an expression that even Nona couldn't translate. How can I be into... They go to where the last remaining really old people are. Reverend Daughter's back. Hell yeah. I want to kiss your feet. Eglamine notices that Gideon is not alive. The gang says to the 9th house, we need you to take us to the tomb.
We're here for the cult stuff.
There's a part on Nona's arm that cut and it's not healing itself. Pyrrha calls for Paul and then starts trying to warm Nona up. Paul, scanning Nona's body, says her healing stopped. A couple organs have collapsed. We have to get Nona's soul back in her body 5 minutes ago. I can't cry on the internet. It's gonna be terrible for my bad bitch reputation. I can do it. Nona reached out. She found Camilla's wrist, a wrist she had loved so keenly, attached to hands that had bathed her and flipped the pages of magazines to read to her. She looked up into the face of the woman who was gone, which had been shared by a man who was also gone. A face taken by someone new. It only gets worse. I might not help you when I'm back, she said, not quite understanding. I'll be different. I'll remember everything. I'll remember the thing I'm trying to forget. And Palamedes, I won't love him. I won't love Camilla or Pyrrha or Hot Sauce or even Noodle. I won't love anything. I won't know how. I won't be me at all, or I'll be the me who knows the thing, and knowing the thing means I'm not Nona. I'm someone else. Paul just keeps trying to warm Nona up and says, okay, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. If Nona were a dinosaur from the land before time, she'd be Chomper. Okay. Camilla and Palamedes were loved by Nona, said Paul. Pyrrha was loved by Nona. It's finished. It's done. You can't take loved away. You can't take loved away? I wish that you would take my brain away after I had to read this book. Pyrrha says, don't worry, kitty. I'll keep loving you. My problem is I don't know how to stop. And you know who you were. You're capable of more than you think right now. I liked you. My necromancer and I liked you. And hey, what's like except a love that hasn't been invited indoors? Nona says, but you didn't get me a 6-month birthday present. Honey, of course I got you a birthday present. The birthday present that Pyrrha got for Nona was a inappropriate t-shirt. Nona says, can you please tell me about it? And Pyrrha looks at Paul and is like, okay, yeah. So it advertised cheap mustache rides. Paul says, Palamedes wouldn't have let her wear that out of the house. Camilla wouldn't have let her wear that in the house. But Paul thinks mustache rides should be free.
Yes! Sit on it!
The stupidest thing to be crying over. It is just how it is. I'm going to go back and fetch it. I'll remember. I'll make myself remember, and I'll wear it all the time, inside the house and outside the house, and then you'll know it's really me. I'm not going to be gone forever. I'm ready. Let's go. Except that there's somebody standing outside of the door to the locked tomb. It was someone exactly Crown's height. Someone with Crown's face, but like someone had washed her in hot water and soaked the color out. A Crown who gangled, without any of Crown's lovely curvy softness or brightness a wretched white crown. A crown with an arm that was all bones, metal shod bones, real moving bones, with bony gold fingers.
In case you were wondering.
Ianthe Tridentarius, smoking, has set them a sticky trap of fat that they're all now stuck in front of her as she just sat there in the dark in front of the tomb. Gideon says, "How the frick did you get here before me?" Nona spots something on Ianthe's wrist. Colorful string. Nona notices that there's a bracelet on that wrist. A bracelet braided from a bunch of different colors of string. Nona says, "They're wearing friendship bracelets." Hey ladies, Gideon Neff, friendship braceleted up with Ianthe Tridentarius. This is actually very funny. The callback that nobody expected. How to even bring this up? If you just heard me take off my glasses, that's because I am so concerned that Ianthe and Gideon are married. They're not, right? But that would explain why Ianthe is calling John Papa. They can't be. No. Anyway, sorry, I had to put this in because I cut the friendship bracelet part out of the Gideon video. But I kept the marriage part in. So this is me linking back up to that marriage point. But I know Gideon was like one or the other. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know what's happening. They also have a secret handshake. Ianthe Tridentarius and Gideon Neff. Yep. Hey ladies, Gideon says, yeah, 6th house is here too. The important ones. The rest of them are parked.
Judas.
Gideon Neff appears to have betrayed them low-key. Gideon and Ianthe are being tower princes, like, hey, la la la.
I've got a new wife now.
Great, we're gonna go pick up the 6th house for Daddy.
God's favorite.
Yeah. Paul looks at Gideon. Harrowhark's body is nearly dead. We need to get in the tomb. Are we gonna open that tomb? Ianthe's like, no, we're not gonna open that tomb. And Gideon's like, yeah, open the tomb. Ianthe's like, yeah, what? Gideon says, that tomb's opening right now, threatening Ianthe with the sword.
How the turntables.
They start fighting. There's a lot of daddy issue fighting. There's a lot of fighting over Harrowhark, Nona Gesimus. Is this about Harry after all? There was a deep indrawn breath. Ianthe laughed and said, you don't have to breathe, you know. You're so goddamn boring when you talk about Harrowhark, so don't.
Not even if we were the last 2 people on Earth, and she looked absolutely stunning in her ball gown, so every time I looked at her, I got butterflies in my tummy.
Gideon says something like, God sent her to do this, to take out the thing in the tomb, so then she'd become God's cavalier. And this is going to be really great, and she's so important. I don't know what he loves her, Ianthe howled. John loves Alecto. John needs Alecto. Without that piece of goddamn fridge meat, he's nothing, and we need to keep him that way. But the secret's out.
It's Bobby, bitch, if you still in doubt.
And Nona starts to unravel. I mean this literally. Nona's body is coming apart. There's like a she's and they're trying to keep her in one piece. A shot goes off. Pyrrha has shot Ianthe with a herald bullet that she intended to use on John. Ianthe's out of the way.
What? Am I bleeding?
There are so many people around Nona, and Gideon says, keep it together wherever you are, idiot. I know you can hear me. Keep it together. Pyrrha and Gideon lift Nona, one on one side, one on the other. Pyrrha says, keep her arm, Paul, her arm's coming off. They get to the door of the tomb, the part that needs Gideon's blood, and Gideon is just saying, take it, take however much you need. But they also need some fresh energy, so they need to unalive somebody right now. Gideon says, me, unalive me. No, we can't use you. You're not alive. Hera says, unalive me. If Wake had asked, me or Gideon would have done it. Rux pushes through and he says, take me, you fools. As Nona is coming apart, she's having flashbacks to when John locked her in there. John had lured her into this cave because he wanted to show her something. The glowworms on the ceiling, because she always thought that those were pretty. As she can also remember somebody, dark eyes and painted face that looked really sad over her, and who had kissed her. Baby Harrowhark Nona Gesimus, after getting into the tomb, she definitely touched Alecto's hand, but she may have also kissed Alecto. When baby Harrowhark Nona Gesimus did this, Alecto's soul went into Harrowhark Nona Gesimus and has been in Harrowhark Nona Gesimus the whole time. And the body was not a hallucination. Harrow's actually been seeing Alecto and talking to Alecto because Alecto has been possessing Harrow since she was 10. Alecto hasn't been in there for a long time, but it was the full-on Gideon getting knocked out of Harrow's body and Harrow going into Alecto's body after the whole river thing that really cemented the swap. I'm essentializing a little bit here. I think technically when Harrow kissed/touched Alecto, she created a revenant link. Remember, Abigail Pent? And then that is how Alecto has been tapping into Harrowhark Nona Gesimus, and vice versa. The end of Harrow the Ninth is when Harrow's body officially gets possessed. Because of the whole souls are permeable thing, Alecto as Nona is having Harrow's dreams, the painted girls in the water being Gideon and Harrow. And then Harrow is experiencing Alecto's memory of when John told her about the Great Resurrection immediately after it happened. And I'm pretty sure this is the same thing as Harrow, where it's a bubble in the river, and that's why it only activates when Alecto is sleeping. Oh my god. Gideon, unalives Crux. She's like, there we go. Gideon starts saying, that didn't feel good. Why didn't that feel good? Things happening, but they get her in the tomb. Nona goes all the way up to the coffin in the center of the lake. Soul gravity thing happening. And there she is, sleeping, and within her the child is sleeping. Nona looks back over at everybody because she can hear Anastasia calling to her, but she just sees Anastasia's bones in the corner of the room because Anastasia and Alecto, kind of friends. Anastasia caught God chaining Alecto up in this coffin and trapping her in there. God unalived Anastasia for that and left her in there. Hello. I cut out all the references to this. I thought that the nun was Anastasia. If Anastasia was a nun pre-resurrection, that's kind of funny. Just like how Pyrrha was a detective and Mercy being passionate about reproductive rights and then ending up violating people's reproductive bodily autonomy. So Anastasia being a nun pre-resurrection, I thought made thematic sense. Also, Anastasia coming in being like, hey John, did you find the soul? And then pew, herself, but it actually probably being John who shot her neatly mirrors that scene where John said that Anastasia just couldn't do the lictor thing, but like John actually unalived her because she was standing up for Alecto and then he locked her in the tomb. It made sense to me story-wise, a neat little bow. But I've been on the Locked to Tomb wiki checking name spelling. People think that Christabel's the nun. The nun was Mercy's friend, so that would make sense if Christabel is her cavalier. So I removed my references to Anastasia being the nun, just in case. I don't want to mislead you. But also, I'm a little bit confused because not all of the lictors are in the Book of John. Did John get some of them afterwards? I know God brought back Ulysses and Titania because he's a weirdo. I'm looking for the part where it's like a banker, a baker, a candlestick maker. There's 8 of them. That doesn't add up to the right number. There are 3 left unaccounted for, and I think the 3 left unaccounted for are Cytherea, Anastasia, and Cyrus. I'm just yapping now. Sorry. Nona looks at the crowd of people and then looks down at the body and says, happy birthday to me, I guess, and goes into the body. The epilogue of this book is written early modern English style. Alecto.
I'm really brilliant. I love dogs.
The soul of the earth, who was Nona, breaks the chains that are holding her in that coffin and gets up. There's 2 children on this island with Alecto. There's one that's lying down, and there's another one wielding a sword at her. And the one lying down on the coffin, "What is this that thou wouldst do, trident Arius? Touch her, and our vow will come to nothing, and I will slay you where you stand." I'm translating this for you. Hero Hark Nona is back. And she says to Ianthe Trident Arius, who's trying to unalive Alecto, she says, "Ianthe, you touch Alecto, and I'm going to break our vow, and I'm going to unalive you and Coronabeth." And Alecto backhands Ianthe into the water. Alecto can hear all of these people yelling at her, and on the shore, there's a bunch of other children and some dead children. She sees Pyrrha, and she says, Pyrrha,
he laid me down as an appeasement to them. He fed you to them as an appeasement to them, but he has never appeased me. And now all he has done was teach me how to die.
But Pyrrha doesn't hear her. So Alecto looks at Harrow, and she's going to unalive her when she recognizes Harrow as the girl from her dreams. Harrow says, "Hi, Alecto. I love you. I've loved you my whole life, and I'm going to serve you my whole life. You're like Loki god to me now. I'm a child of the Locked Tomb. You can destroy me if you want." Alecto picks up Harrow and kisses her. But Alecto doesn't really know how to kiss, so she's kind of biting her mouth. Harrow's just letting this happen. Alecto, when she kisses her, bites her, she can taste her blood, and she's like, "Oh, you're Anastasia's descendant. You're a tomb keeper." And Harrow says, "Yeah." Alecto says that she remembers the vows that she swore to Anastasia. She's now in Harrow's service. She just kneels down and offers up her sword. And there's a voice on the shore that says, "Get in line, thou big slut." I wonder who that was. Sometime later, Alecto's walking in a ship. Harrow Hark Nona slung over her shoulder. She comes up to John. She stabs John. John opens his eyes and says, "Annabelle, good morning." That's the book. I have so much to say, but I can't say it right now, so I will see you in the outro. Hello. It's been a couple days. I had to let it marinate. Here we are. It's the end. What to say that hasn't already been said? 3 things. We need to talk about the tragedy of Pyrrha the Vey. What the freak? What do you mean Pyrrha was trapped in the back of her best friend's brain this whole time? Fell in love with a woman who her best friend was also in love with, and they had an odd relationship. But then that woman, pregnant with a baby who Pyrrha thought was hers, gets unalived by Pyrrha's best friend and Pyrrha. Then that baby shows up in the body of a little 9th house gremlin. Turns out father's actually God, aka another one of your friends who was the leader of the cult you were in before you got resurrected. The little 9th house gremlin containing the baby of the woman you loved, that little baby gets injured. Suddenly, factory reset, can't remember a thing, is actually a baby whom you raise for 6 months. And then turns out that's not your baby. That's the undead soul of the earth, who goes back to her body and doesn't love you anymore. Oh, and along the way, you run into the actual child of the woman you loved, but she's just a fast-talking corpse and has no will to live. Oh, and she's dead because your friend, the cult leader, her dad, did not bring her back all the way. Cherry on top, the 2 people that you've been co-parenting with, whom you love, you have to watch them destroy themselves because they miss each other so much. They cannot live without each other. Pyrrha lists 2 things that she thinks are sexy. People that she describes as landmine people. And then Palamedes explodes. Camilla Hecht bursts into flame. What? Pyrrha is broken at the end of that damn book. She's too hot for that. Someone give Pyrrha a happy ending. Second point. Another slightly heartbreaking thing. The poetics of Harrow Hark Nona falling in love with the earth, and that being the reason why she didn't. But also the optics of Harrow Hark Nona seeing Barbie and being like, that's the girl for me, is very funny on a less serious note. Third thing, this is not time for predictions. That's bingo. Even though my bingo, we don't need to get into it now, but it's really just stuff. It's not a lot of plot. I have been thinking about the devils and the tower. Is that the souls of the people that John stashed aside during the resurrection? Is that what that is? And I just like didn't put that together until now. I think about Nona, the book, structurally, like it was supposed to be just the start of Alecto. So thinking about what happens in it, I think about it in terms of what is this setting up. Obviously a lot of the towers, the resurrection beast stuff, the devils. When Alecto asks John, what did you do with them? What did you do with the people? And then also, you know that the ninth house got repopulated by people that John had stashed aside during the resurrection because he gave those people to Harrow and was like, here's your house. So what the hell does Varun the Eater say? Varun the Eater, my source of information. They seek their own revenge. Their revenge is not mine. They're coming out of their tower, salt thing. So is the implication that the revenge of those souls, is that corruption? Is it the corruption thing that happens to the planets but to people? Guys, I don't know. Will I ever understand the river? Did John stash him aside in something in the river? Are they coming out of chaos hell? Is that the hole in the bottom of the tower in the river? I tried to keep things sort of accurate for this book, but Nona's the one that I have the hardest time with, both because I find it a really hard book to read, especially after you've read it the first time. Ow. But also, I don't know, that one I just have the hardest time sort of figuring out what's going on. As established, the Blood of Eden stuff confuses me. Like everything with Alecto, okay. I think those were the last things I wanted to say, other than thank you. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for watching the Gideon and Harrow ones too. I alluded to this in the Harrow video, but I love the Locked Tomb fandom. I always think it's so funny when people talk about fandom culture being dead. Y'all aren't in the Locked Tomb corner. A swift end to the alectopause. That's what I'm wishing you all today. For the 9th, I guess. The first time I read the book, I was like, oh, Noodle's the moon. No, he's not. I think Noodle's just a normal dog. Where'd the moon go, John?